I stared at the wedding invitation that arrived last Tuesday, my hands trembling as I read the elegant script announcing my brother Jake's upcoming nuptials. But it wasn't the invitation itself that made my blood run cold. It was the handwritten note tucked inside, penned in my mother's distinctive cursive, "Time to let bygones be bygones. Love, Mom and Dad." 17 years of silence, and they chose these words to break it. My mind immediately transported back to that freezing October night when I was 13 years old, standing at a Texaco station, 60 miles from home. "Woman up and find your own way," my father had said before driving away, leaving me with nothing but $12 and the clothes on my back, all because I dared to argue about attending my best friend Sarah's sleepover. The memory of that night still burns as clearly as the fluorescent lights that illuminated the Texaco station where my childhood ended. I can still see their Toyota Camry's taillights disappearing into the darkness, leaving me standing there in my middle school volleyball hoodie and worn jeans completely alone. The October wind cut through the thin fabric as I counted my money for the 5th time, hoping it would somehow multiply. $12. That's all I had to my name. Earl, the night attendant, noticed me first. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s, with kind eyes and grease-stained fingers from years of handling gas pumps. "You all right there, sweetheart?" he asked, stepping out from behind the counter. I must have looked as lost as I felt because his expression quickly shifted from casual concern to genuine worry. "My parents left me," I managed to say, my voice cracking. "They drove away and told me to find my own ride home." Earl's face darkened with anger. "They what now? How old are you?" 13. Without hesitation, he reached for the phone behind the counter. "I'm calling the police. This ain't right. No parent should leave their child like this." I felt a flutter of hope as he dialed. Maybe this nightmare would end quickly. Maybe Officer Martinez, who arrived 20 minutes later, would simply drive me home and give my parents a stern talking to. But the moment he stepped out of his patrol car and saw me, something in his expression made my stomach drop. "You're Dulcie, right?" Officer Martinez asked, checking his notepad. He was young, probably late 20s, with a carefully groomed mustache and an unreadable expression. "Your parents called us about an hour ago." My heart sank. Of course they had. "They said you're a chronic runaway, that you make up stories about abuse for attention." He studied me carefully as if looking for signs of deception. "They mentioned you've done this 3 times before." "That's not true." The words exploded from me. "I've never run away. They left me here. Ask Earl, he saw me when they drove off." Earl shifted uncomfortably behind us. "Well, I didn't actually see them leave her. She was already here when I noticed her." Officer Martinez sighed, rubbing his temple. "Look, your parents have requested that you be taken to juvenile services for evaluation. They said you need professional help, that they've tried everything else." The world tilted. Juvenile services. Evaluation. I knew kids who'd been taken there, locked up for weeks or months, treated like criminals or mental patients. "No, please, I'm telling the truth. They planned this. They must have called ahead to set up this story." "That's exactly the kind of thing a troubled kid would say," Martinez replied, though I caught a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Come on, let's go. We'll sort this out at the station." Panic flooded my system. I couldn't let them take me. I knew instinctively that once I was in the system labeled as a troubled runaway, my parents' version of events would become the official truth. "Can I use the bathroom first?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Martinez nodded, gesturing toward the back of the station. "Make it quick." Earl had returned to the counter, avoiding eye contact with me as I passed. The bathroom was small and grimy, with a tiny window above the toilet. My heart pounded as I climbed onto the toilet seat, pushed open the window, and squeezed through. The drop to the ground was farther than I expected, and I landed hard on my ankle. But adrenaline pushed me forward as I limped into the darkness behind the gas station. I could hear Martinez calling my name, then Earl's voice joining in. Flashlight beams swept across the parking lot. I pressed myself against the cold metal of a dumpster, holding my breath as footsteps approached. They passed within 3 feet of me, but the shadows hid me well. For 2 hours, I remained frozen in place as they searched. I heard Martinez on his radio reporting that the runaway had fled again, confirming her parents' story. More patrol cars arrived. They searched the surrounding area methodically, but eventually gave up as the night grew colder. By the time the last patrol car left, it was past midnight. The gas station had closed Earl driving away in his pickup truck without a backward glance. I was completely alone injured, and now officially labeled as exactly what my parents had claimed, a troubled runaway who couldn't be trusted. The irony wasn't lost on me. By running from the police, I'd made their lies become truth. But what choice did I have? Let them lock me up based on my parents' word? Allow myself to be evaluated by doctors who'd already been told I was a liar? I slumped against the dumpster, finally allowing the tears to fall. The metal was ice cold against my back, and my ankle throbbed where I'd landed on it. The $12 in my pocket felt like nothing against the vast emptiness of my situation. No phone, no way to contact anyone who might help, and now the police would be looking for me as a confirmed runaway. The reality of what my parents had done began to sink in. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment punishment or an empty threat meant to scare me. They had called ahead, crafted a story, created an official narrative that painted me as the problem. They had planned this abandonment with the same careful attention they gave to planning family vacations or holiday dinners. But why, the question echoed in my mind as I shivered in the darkness. What kind of parents orchestrate their 13-year-old daughter's disappearance? What had I done that was so terrible? I'd argued about a sleepover, talked back a few times, gotten a B- in algebra. Normal teenage stuff that other kids did without being abandoned at gas stations. A rustling sound made me freeze. A rat emerged from beneath the dumpster, regarding me with beady eyes before scurrying away. I pulled my knees to my chest, making myself as small as possible. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew lonely and mournful. I thought about Sarah, probably asleep in her warm bed, wondering why I hadn't shown up for the sleepover. Would she call my house in the morning? What would my parents tell her, that I'd run away? That I was getting help for my problems? Would anyone question their story? The temperature continued to drop. My volleyball hoodie, which had seemed warm enough when I'd left the house that afternoon, now felt like tissue paper against the wind. I spotted some cardboard boxes near the dumpster and grabbed them, trying to create some kind of shelter. The smell of rotting food made my stomach turn, but it was better than freezing. As I arranged the cardboard, a horrible thought struck me. What if this wasn't the first time they'd done this? My sister Emma had supposedly run away 5 years earlier when she was 15. I was only 8 at the time, too young to question the story. Emma had been troubled too, according to my parents. Always making up stories, seeking attention, causing problems. One day she was there, the next she was gone. We never heard from her again. The parallels were too obvious to ignore. Had Emma stood at some gas station too abandoned and afraid? Had she been labeled a runaway by police who'd been fed the same lies? Where was she now? The thought made me angry, and anger was better than despair. I wouldn't disappear like Emma. I would survive this, figure out what my parents were really doing, and find a way to expose them. But first, I had to make it through the night. I pulled the cardboard tighter around me, creating a small cave of sorts. My ankle had swollen, making it painful to move. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but I couldn't risk going anywhere tonight. Tomorrow, I would figure out how to find food, water, shelter. Tomorrow, I would start learning how to survive. But tonight, I was just a 13-year-old girl sleeping behind a dumpster, abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect me. The stars above were hidden by clouds, and the darkness felt infinite. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine warmth, safety, home. But home was no longer a place I could return to. Home had driven away in a Toyota Camry, leaving me to woman up and find my own way. The cold had settled into my bones by 2 a.m, making sleep impossible. My makeshift cardboard shelter did little against the October wind that whistled through the alley behind the Texaco station. I was calculating how many hours until sunrise when I heard footsteps approaching. My body tensed, ready to run despite my swollen ankle. The police had returned, or worse, someone looking for an easy target. "You can relax," a voice said from the darkness. "I'm not going to hurt you." A figure emerged from the shadows. A teenage boy, maybe 16, carrying a worn backpack and a bundle of fabric. He had sandy hair that needed cutting and clothes that had seen better days, but his eyes were alert and surprisingly warm. "I'm Marcus," he said, keeping his distance to show he wasn't a threat. "Saw the police circus earlier. First time." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Figured. You're doing it wrong." He gestured at my cardboard setup. "Wind's coming from the west tonight. You've got your opening facing right into it. Also, cardboard alone won't cut it. Here." He tossed me the bundle of fabric. It was a thick blanket army surplus by the look of it, with only a few holes. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, catching the blanket. Marcus shrugged, settling down a safe distance away. "Someone helped me my first night 3 months ago. Figured I'd pass it on." He showed me how to arrange the cardboard to block the wind properly, how to use the blanket to trap body heat. "What's your name?" "Dulcie." "How old?" 13. He winced. "That's rough. I was 13 when my stepdad first kicked me out, but at least I got to go back for a while. Parents, they left me here, told the cops I was a chronic runaway." Classic move. Marcus said, his voice bitter. "My stepdad did the same thing. Makes it easier for them. Nobody questions the concerned parent story." He pulled out a water bottle and offered it to me. "Small sips. Don't know when you'll find more." The water was lukewarm but tasted better than anything I'd ever drunk. How do you survive out here?" Marcus gave me a crash course in street survival over the next 2 hours. He taught me which restaurants threw out perfectly good food at closing time and exactly when to check their dumpsters. The McDonald's 2 blocks over tossed everything at 11:30 sharp. The Chinese place on 3rd Street was good for rice and vegetables around midnight. Pizza places were gold mines on weekends. "Never eat anything that smells off, no matter how hungry you are," he warned. "Food poisoning out here can kill you, and always check for mold, especially on bread." He showed me how to layer newspaper between clothing for insulation, how to wash up in public restrooms without getting kicked out, where to find clean water. The library was good during the day, he said, warm and quiet with bathrooms and water fountains. The key was to look like you belonged, to carry a book and appear studious. "What about shelters?" I asked. Marcus shook his head quickly. "Too dangerous for someone your age. They'll call social services and then you're back in the system, plus some of the adults there." He didn't finish, but I understood. Better to stay invisible. He taught me about the morning police sweeps that happened around 6 a.m., clearing out anyone sleeping rough in the business district. The safe zones were the industrial area by the river and the abandoned lots near the old factory, but those came with their own dangers. He explained the unwritten rules of the streets, the territories different groups had claimed, who to avoid and who might help. "There's a woman who runs a food truck on Tuesdays and Fridays," Marcus said. "Mrs. Chen. She'll give you a free meal if you help her clean up. Doesn't ask questions. And the church on Maple does a clothing drive first Saturday of every month. Get there early for the good stuff." My head spun, trying to remember everything. This was a whole different world existing parallel to the one I'd known, with its own rules and rhythms and survival strategies. Just yesterday, I'd been worried about algebra tests and volleyball practice. Now I was learning which dumpsters had the best food and how to avoid being arrested for vagrancy. "Why did your stepdad kick you out?" I asked when Marcus paused in his instructions. His expression darkened. "I told a teacher about what he was doing to my mom. Teacher called social services. Investigation went nowhere because Mom was too scared to back me up. Stepdad was furious. Said if I wanted to destroy the family, I could live on the streets." He picked at a hole in his jeans. "That was 3 months ago. Mom still walks past me sometimes, pretends she doesn't see me." We sat in silence for a while. Despite everything, I realized I was lucky in a strange way. My parents had abandoned me cleanly with no pretense of love. Marcus had to watch his mother choose his abuser over him every day. "It gets easier," he said eventually. Not better, but easier. You learn the rhythms, find your spots, maybe make a few friends. Some kids even make it out eventually. Get jobs under the table, save up, find roommates. He stood up, shouldering his backpack. Speaking of which, I should check the pizza place before it gets too late. Want to come? I'll show you how it's done. I tried to stand, but my ankle gave out, sending me back to the ground with a gasp of pain. Marcus knelt beside me, gently examining my ankle. Sprained bad. You need to stay off it. He thought for a moment. Okay, new plan. You stay here, keep warm. I'll do the food run and bring you back something. Tomorrow, if you can walk, I'll show you where to find a first aid kit. You do that, share your food with me. He smiled and for a moment looked like any other teenager instead of a hardened street kid. First rule out here, we look out for each other when we can. The world's cruel enough without us adding to it. He headed off into the darkness, promising to be back within an hour. I wrapped myself in his blanket, amazed by the difference it made. The cardboard shelter, properly positioned, now actually blocked most of the wind. For the first time since my parents drove away, I didn't feel completely alone. Marcus had survived 3 months. Maybe I could too. He returned 40 minutes later with a feast by street standards, 2 slices of pepperoni pizza, an unopened bag of breadsticks, and half a chocolate cake that someone had special ordered but never picked up. We ate in companionable silence, and food had never tasted so good. "Where do you sleep usually?" I asked between bites. "I move around. Staying in one place too long draws attention. Tonight I was planning to crash in the old railway depot, but it's a bit of a walk." "You could stay here," I offered, surprised by my own boldness. "I mean, there's room and you brought the blanket anyway." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Just for tonight. It's actually good to have someone watch your back. You can take turns sleeping." We arranged ourselves carefully in the shelter, maintaining appropriate distance, but sharing the warmth. Marcus took the first watch, insisting I needed rest for my ankle to heal. Despite everything, I felt safer than I had all night. Not safe, exactly, but not completely vulnerable either. "Marcus," I said into the darkness. "Yeah. Thank you for everything. I don't know what I would have done." "You would have figured it out," he said firmly. "You're tougher than you think. All of us out here are. We don't have a choice." I dozed, fitfully waking every time a car passed or a sound disturbed the night. During Marcus's sleep shift, I kept watch like he'd shown me alert for any approaching danger. The night seemed endless, but eventually the sky began to lighten in the east. Marcus woke just before 5, instantly alert. "I need to move before the sweeps start. You should too, once your ankle's better." He gathered his few belongings, quickly efficient from practice. "Will I see you again?" I asked, suddenly desperate not to lose this connection. "Maybe. I'll check back here tomorrow night if I can. But Dulcie..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "Don't depend on anyone out here, including me. People disappear. They get arrested, they move on, He didn't finish. "Just be careful who you trust." He left me the blanket despite my protests. "I've got another stashed," he said. Then he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and wrote something on it. "If you're ever in real trouble, go to this address. It's a drop-in center run by an ex-street kid. They won't call the cops, but only use it for emergencies." Then he was gone, melting into the pre-dawn darkness like he'd never existed. I tucked the paper carefully into my shoe and began the painful process of standing. My ankle was worse after the night's rest, swollen and purple, but I couldn't stay here. The police would return or Earl would find me when he opened the station. I limped slowly toward the library Marcus had mentioned, each step agony. The blanket was bulky but precious, my only possession besides the clothes I wore. The $12 remained in my pocket, untouched. Marcus had shown me how to survive without money, at least for now. As the sun rose over the city, I thought I knew. I realized I was seeing it with completely different eyes. Every doorway was potential shelter, every dumpster a possible meal, every police car a threat. I was no longer Dulcie, the 8th grader who worried about homework and friend drama. I was Dulce, the runaway learning to survive in shadows I'd never known existed. By the time I reached the library, it was almost 6. I found a hidden spot behind some bushes to wait until opening time, wrapping the blanket around myself. My stomach was already growling despite the late-night pizza, and my ankle throbbed with each heartbeat. But I was alive. I was free, and I had knowledge I hadn't possessed 24 hours ago. When I woke from an exhausted doze 2 hours later, the sun was fully up. I carefully folded Marcus's blanket and checked the note he'd given me. The address was real memorizable, but something else was written on the back that I hadn't noticed in the darkness. "Sorry kid, trust no one." The words sent a chill through me. I looked around, half expecting to see Marcus watching from somewhere, but the street was empty of familiar faces. Just commuters heading to work, living their normal lives, not noticing the injured girl with a blanket clutched to her chest. Trust no one. Even Marcus, who'd shown me kindness, who'd shared his food and knowledge, felt the need to leave that warning. Because on the streets, trust was a luxury none of us could afford. Everyone had their own survival to worry about. I tucked the note back in my shoe and prepared to face my second day as a runaway. The library would open soon. I would clean myself up, find something to read, try to blend in. I would rest my ankle and plan my next move. And I would remember Marcus's lessons, both the ones he'd spoken and the one he'd written. Trust no one. In a world where parents could abandon their children and police could be made to believe lies, maybe that was the most valuable lesson of all. The public library opened at 9 sharp. I had been waiting behind the bushes for an hour practicing looking normal. Marcus had been right about appearance mattering. I finger-combed my hair, used spit to clean the worst dirt from my face, and adjusted my volleyball hoodie to hide a new tear. The blanket went into a plastic bag I'd found, making it look like I was carrying library books. Inside warmth enveloped me like a hug. I hadn't realized how cold I'd been until that moment. The librarian at the front desk, a middle-aged black woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, glanced up as I entered. "Good morning," she said pleasantly. Her name tag read, Mrs. Patterson. "Morning." I mumbled, trying to project student doing research energy. I made my way to the young adult section, grabbing a random book about dystopian futures. Ironic, considering I was living my own dystopia. I found a corner table partially hidden by shelves and settled in. The chair felt like heaven after a night on concrete. For the first hour, I genuinely tried to read, but exhaustion made the words blur. I switched to pretending turning pages at regular intervals while actually watching the library's rhythm. Mrs. Patterson made regular rounds straightening chairs and checking on patrons. A security guard did a loop every 30 minutes. The bathrooms were down a hallway, no cameras visible. By 11, I desperately needed those bathrooms. I left my book open to hold my place and limped down the hallway. Inside, I locked the door and finally saw myself in a mirror. The girl staring back looked like a stranger. Hair matted despite my efforts, dirt streaked on my cheek eyes hollow with exhaustion. My ankle had swollen more, straining against my sneaker. I washed as thoroughly as possible with paper towels and hand soap. The hot water felt miraculous on my cold hands. I even managed to rinse my hair in the sink, though drying it with paper towels left it looking worse than before. But at least I was cleanish. Back at my table, I found Mrs. Patterson straightening nearby books. She glanced at my open book, then at me. Something flickered in her expression. "That's the 3rd time you've had that same page open," she said quietly. My heart stopped. I'd been careless, too tired to properly fake reading. "I'm studying it really carefully." I tried. She moved closer, lowering her voice. "Honey, I've been a librarian for 22 years. I know when someone's reading and when someone's just trying to stay warm." Her eyes took in my damp hair the way I favored my injured ankle. "Are you all right?" The kindness in her voice almost broke me, but Marcus's warning echoed trust no one. "I'm fine, just tired from staying up late studying." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. "Of course. Well, there's a reading nook in the back that's more comfortable. Quieter, too. Less foot traffic." She pointed toward a corner I hadn't noticed. "The history section. Nobody ever goes back there on weekdays." I understood the unspoken offer. a place to rest without being observed. Thank you. She started to walk away, then paused. The library serves free lunch to students in our after-school program at noon, in the community room. If you happen to be there, I doubt anyone would check whether you're officially enrolled. My empty stomach clenched with hope. That's good to know. Mrs. Patterson smiled and continued her rounds. I gathered my things and found the history section. She was right. It was perfect. High shelves created a private space with a comfortable chair and even a small table. I sank into the chair, elevating my injured ankle on my backpack. For the next hour, I dozed, fitfully startling awake whenever someone walked past. At 5 minutes to noon, I made my way to the community room. About a dozen kids were already there, mostly elementary age. Mrs. Patterson was setting out sandwiches and fruit. "Oh, good you made it," she said casually, as if I belonged there. "Help yourself. We always have extras." I took a turkey sandwich, an apple, and a juice box, trying not to seem too eager. The food was simple, but felt like a feast. I ate slowly, savoring each bite while the younger kids chattered around me. "You're new," a boy about 10 observed. "Just started coming," I said vaguely. "Cool. Mrs. P's the best. She lets us do homework here and everything." After lunch, I returned to my history nook. The food and warmth made me drowsy, but I forced myself to actually read this time, choosing a book about local history. If I was going to hide here regularly, I needed to blend in better. Around 2 o'clock, nature called again. This time, as I walked to the bathroom, I passed the computer area. On the community bulletin board, among notices for yoga classes and book clubs, I saw it. My school photo stared back at me from a missing person flyer. Runaway Dulcie Martinez, age 13, may be dangerous to herself or others. If seen, do not approach. Contact police immediately. The words hit like physical blows. Dangerous, do not approach. They'd made me sound like a criminal or a mental patient. My knees went weak. I tore my eyes away and continued to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall. Panic rose in my throat. How many of these flyers were out there? Had Mrs. Patterson seen it? Was she calling the police right now? When I emerged minutes later, Mrs. Patterson stood by the sink holding the exact flyer I'd just seen. "I thought so," she said softly. "Dulce Martinez." I backed toward the door, ready to run despite my ankle. "I'm not dangerous, I swear. They're lying about everything." "I know." Those 2 words stopped me cold. No. Mrs. Patterson locked the bathroom door and leaned against it. 25 years ago, I was 15. My parents didn't want a teenage daughter who asked questions, who had opinions, who wouldn't just smile and obey, so they had me committed, said I was troubled, violent, a danger to myself. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held old pain. I spent 2 years in that place. 2 years of medications. I didn't need treatments for illnesses I didn't have all because it was easier than dealing with a real daughter. "How did you get out?" "Turned 18. They couldn't hold me anymore. But those 2 years are on my record forever. Made getting jobs, apartments, everything harder." She folded the flyer carefully. "When I finally built a life, became a librarian, I swore I'd watch for kids like us. The ones labeled troubled when their only trouble is the adults who should protect them. So you'll help me." "I'll do what I can, but we need to be smart about it." She thought for a moment. "There's an old storage room in the basement. Used to be the children's section before we renovated. Nobody goes there now. It has a small bathroom and I can bring you food, but there are conditions." "Anything," I said quickly. "You stay invisible. No one can know you're here, not even the other staff. You help me understand what really happened. And if things get too dangerous, if police start seriously searching, you have to leave. I won't risk my job and my ability to help other kids for one understood." I nodded. It was more than I dared hope for. Mrs. Patterson led me through a door marked staff only and down narrow stairs. The basement was a maze of storage areas and forgotten spaces. She unlocked a door at the far end. The room was small but dry, filled with old reading posters and outdated encyclopedias. A forgotten beanbag chair sat in one corner. The attached bathroom was tiny but functional. "I'll bring blankets tomorrow," she said, and some clothes from the donation bin. What size shoe do you wear? 7. Same as my niece. I'll see what I can find. She paused at the door. Dulcie, I need to know. Why did they do this to you? I told her everything. The argument about the sleepover, my father's cold command to woman up the police believing their lies. Then hesitantly, I mentioned Emma. Mrs. Patterson's face went very still. You had a sister who disappeared, also labeled a runaway. 5 years ago, she was 15. What was her full name? Emma Louise Martinez. Mrs. Patterson pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. Her expression grew increasingly grim. Dulcie, I need to check something. Will you be all right here for a few hours? I nodded, confused but trusting her urgency. Lock the door behind me. Don't come out for any reason. I'll knock 3 times, pause, then twice more. That's how you'll know it's me. After she left, I explored my new sanctuary. Running water, a toilet, electric lights, walls, and a roof. After last night, it felt like a palace. I curled up on the beanbag chair, finally allowing exhaustion to claim me. The knock came hours later, 3 times, pause, twice more. Mrs. Patterson entered carrying a canvas bag. I brought dinner and some supplies. She unpacked sandwiches, fruit, bottled water, basic toiletries. But first we need to talk about what I found. She showed me printouts from newspaper archives. I remembered your sister's case vaguely. It was in the papers. But I found something else. She handed me an article from 3 years ago. A Jane Doe was found in Colorado, right age, similar description to Emma, never identified. My hands shook as I read. The girl had been found at the bottom of a ravine, injuries consistent with a fall or a push. There's more, Mrs. Patterson said gently. I have a friend who works in social services. Off the record, she told me your parents filed for Emma's death certificate last year. Claimed they had evidence she died. They've been collecting survivor benefits. The room spun. They killed her. They killed Emma, and they're profiting from it. We don't know that for certain, but it's suspicious enough that we need to be very careful. If they abandoned you the same way... She didn't finish. Dulcie, have you noticed anything else strange about your family? Any patterns? I thought hard, then remembered. My dad's sister, Aunt Maria. She supposedly moved to Mexico when I was little, but she and my dad had been fighting about my grandmother's will. Mrs. Patterson made another note. Tomorrow I'll do more research. For now you need rest and food. Eat then sleep. We'll figure this out, but it's going to take time. After she left, I sat in my small room processing everything. My parents weren't just cruel or neglectful, they were something far worse. And Emma... I couldn't think about Emma without feeling sick. But I wasn't alone anymore. Mrs. Patterson had been where I was, had survived and built a life. She was proof that the label they stuck on us didn't have to define us. I had shelter and ally and the beginning of answers. I thought about Marcus's warning, trust no one. But sometimes you had to take calculated risks. Mrs. Patterson had trusted me with her story. I would trust her with my life, at least for now. That night, sleeping on a pile of old reading rugs instead of behind a dumpster, I dreamed of Emma. She was calling my name, reaching out to me across a vast canyon. I woke with tears on my face and a terrible certainty that my sister had been trying to warn me that last night before she disappeared. I'd been too young to understand. But I understood now, and I would find out exactly what happened to her, what my parents had done, and why. They'd made one mistake in their careful plan. They'd left me alive. 3 days into my basement existence, I developed a routine. Mrs. Patterson would arrive at 7 each morning before the other staff, bringing breakfast and checking on me. Days were spent reading everything I could find about missing children, family crimes, and inheritance law. Nights were for planning and remembering. I brought you something, Mrs. Patterson said on the 4th morning, producing a laptop. It's old but functional. The library's Wi-Fi reaches down here if you sit near the door. I've set up a VPN for safety. Why are you taking such risks for me? I asked, overwhelmed by her continued kindness. She sat on an overturned crate, something she rarely did. Because when I was in that institution, convinced I was as crazy as they said, one nurse believed me. She couldn't get me out, but she kept me sane. She'd sneak me books, real food little reminders that I was human. Mrs. Patterson smiled sadly. She died 5 years ago. Helping kids like us, it's how I honor her memory. The laptop opened new worlds. I started with simple searches about Emma, but found little beyond the original missing person reports and the Jane Doe article Mrs. Patterson had shown me. Then I thought to check our local paper's digital archives, searching for any mention of the Martinez family before Emma disappeared. What I found made my blood run cold. 4 months before Emma vanished, she'd been featured in the paper 3 times. Once for making honor roll with a perfect GPA, once for her volunteer work at the animal shelter where she'd organized a successful adoption drive, the 3rd time for placing 2nd in a state science fair with a project on environmental conservation. This wasn't the portrait of a troubled teen. This was a girl with dreams, ambitions, a future. I dug deeper, finding her social media account still frozen in time. Her last post, 3 days before she disappeared, was about being excited for college applications. The comments from friends asking where she was growing, increasingly worried, then eventually stopping, broke my heart. Then I found something odd in the newspaper archives. A small notice in the legal section dated 2 weeks before Emma disappeared. Public notice Robert and Linda Martinez petition for power of attorney over minor Emma Martinez due to mental incompetence. They'd tried to legally control her first. When that failed, Mrs. Patterson. I called softly when she made her noon check-in. "Look at this." She studied the screen, her face darkening. They tried the legal route first. When did Emma turn 15? I calculated quickly. A month before she disappeared. Old enough to contest power of attorney to speak for herself in court. Mrs. Patterson made notes in her ever-present notebook. "What else have you found?" I showed her my other discovery. Emma's science fair project partner, a boy named David Chen, had posted on a memorial page someone set up. Emma was the smartest person I knew. The week before she left, she told me her parents were acting strange, asking her to sign papers she didn't understand. She was scared. "We need to find this David," Mrs. Patterson said immediately. "I already did. He's a sophomore at State University now, majoring in engineering. His contact info is on the school website." Mrs. Patterson looked impressed. "You're quite the investigator. What else?" I pulled up the oldest file I'd found. This is from 8 years ago. My Aunt Maria, my dad's sister. The article was about a car accident. Maria Martinez had driven off a cliff during a family visit to the mountains. She was 22, recently engaged, and had just inherited a significant sum from their grandmother. "Another accident," Mrs. Patterson murmured. "Any witnesses?" "Just my parents. They were supposedly following in another car but lost sight of her on the winding roads." The pattern was clear now. Anyone who stood to inherit money, anyone who might challenge my parents' control, met with accidents or disappeared. How many others were there? How long had this been going on? "I need to check something," I said, fingers flying over the keyboard. I accessed genealogy websites, public records, building our family tree. What emerged was horrifying. In the past 15 years, 5 members of the Martinez extended family had died young or disappeared. All had been in line for inheritances. All had been last seen with or near my parents. Each death was explained away: accident, suicide, runaway. Never murder. "They're serial killers." I whispered the words, feeling unreal. My parents are serial killers who target their own family. Mrs. Patterson gripped my shoulder. "We need to take this to someone. This is beyond what we can handle alone. Who'd believe us? I'm a runaway with mental problems. Remember, any accusation I make will be dismissed as delusion." She paced the small room. "There has to be—" "Wait." She grabbed her phone. "I know someone. A private investigator who specializes in cold cases. He helped my friend find her birth parents. Let me make a call." While she stepped outside, I continued searching. I found insurance documents poorly hidden in online caches. My parents had life insurance policies on Emma, on me, on Jake. Emma's had already paid out. Mine was worth $200,000 with my parents as beneficiaries. My hands shook as I screenshot everything, emailing copies to 3 different anonymous accounts I'd created. If something happened to me, at least there'd be a trail. Mrs. Patterson returned, looking grim but determined. "He'll help. Tom Bradley, the investigator. He's actually been looking into your family already." "What, why?" "Another family hired him. Their daughter dated your brother Jake 2 years ago. She broke up with him and 2 weeks later fell down a flight of stairs. Survived, but barely. She insists she was pushed but couldn't prove it." Jake. My brother, who'd always seemed so normal, so distant from our parents' coldness. Was he part of this too? "When can I meet him?" I asked. "Tomorrow night. He'll come after the library closes. Dulcie." Mrs. Patterson sat beside me. "You're very brave. But this is dangerous. These people, your parents, they've apparently killed before. If they realize you're investigating them..." "They already tried to get rid of me," I pointed out. "But they made a mistake. They didn't stick around to make sure I disappeared like the others." That night, I lay awake thinking about Emma. Her last night at home, did she know she was in danger? Had she tried to warn me I was only 8, too young to understand if she had? But I remembered her hugging me extra long, telling me she loved me, making me promise to be good. She knew. Somehow she knew she wasn't coming back. I opened the laptop again, unable to sleep. This time I searched for Emma Martinez plus Colorado, plus the date range of the Jane Doe discovery. Buried in a hiking forum was a post that made my heart race. "Strange encounter on Bear Peak Trail," it read. "Saw a family arguing near the cliff edge. Teen girl seemed scared, kept trying to back away while her parents grabbed at her. Would have intervened, but they saw me and immediately acted normal, all smiles. Got bad vibes." This was around 3 p.m. on October 15th. October 15th, the day Emma disappeared. I screenshot it, added it to my growing file. One witness, one person who'd seen something wrong. It wasn't enough for court, but it was validation that my instincts were right. By morning, I'd compiled a 20-page document with every suspicious death, every insurance payout, every piece of evidence I could find. Mrs. Patterson found me asleep at the laptop, my face pressed against the keyboard. "You need to pace yourself," she said gently, bringing breakfast. "This isn't a sprint." 17 years, I said. "They've been doing this for at least 17 years. How many people have died? How many families destroyed? And everyone just believed them because they're good at playing the grieving relatives." "Not everyone," Mrs. Patterson reminded me. "That hiker had suspicions. David Chen knew something was wrong, the girl who survived Jake's push. People see, they just don't always connect the dots." "Until now." She smiled grimly. "Until now. Eat your breakfast. Tonight we start connecting those dots with someone who can actually do something about it." I thought about my parents probably going about their normal lives, confident their latest abandonment had worked. They had no idea I'd found shelter allies, and most importantly, the truth about their 17-year murder spree. "Emma, I promise silently I'll expose them. For you, for Aunt Maria, for all of them. They won't get away with this." The 8th grader who'd argued about a sleepover was gone. In her place sat a detective, a survivor, and maybe the key to bringing down a family of killers who'd hidden behind respectability for far too long. Tomorrow I'd meet Tom Bradley. Tomorrow we'd begin building a case. But today I had more searching to do, because somewhere out there were more victims, more families who deserved justice, and I wouldn't stop until I found them all. 3 weeks had passed since my parents' abandonment, and I'd grown comfortable in my basement sanctuary. Too comfortable, perhaps. Mrs. Patterson had created a routine that made me feel almost normal. Meals appeared regularly. I had books and internet access, and my ankle had finally healed. But normalcy was an illusion, as I discovered the Tuesday morning when everything changed. I was deep in research cross-referencing insurance claims with obituaries when Mrs. Patterson burst through the door without her usual knock pattern. "Someone's been asking about you," she said breathlessly. A man with a camera taking pictures of the library entrance says he's a concerned citizen looking for a runaway. My blood froze. Police? No. Private investigator, but not Tom Bradley. This one feels wrong. She pulled out her phone, showing me a blurry photo she'd managed to snap. The man was tall, thin, wearing an expensive suit that seemed out of place for someone claiming to search for runaways. He's been questioning all the staff showing your picture. I started packing immediately. 3 weeks of safety had made me careless, but my street instincts kicked back in fast. Everything important went into my backpack. The laptop, my evidence files backed up on multiple USB drives, the few clothes Mrs. Patterson had brought me. "Wait," she said. "Don't run yet. Tom Bradley is coming this afternoon as planned. Let me text him about this." Her phone buzzed almost immediately. "He says to sit tight. He's on his way now." Another buzz. "And he says to tell you to check your email. He sent something this morning." I opened the laptop, hands shaking slightly. Bradley's email was brief but shocking. "Dulcie, I've been investigating your family for 18 months. You're not the first person to suspect them. I have evidence, but I need a living witness, someone who survived their attempts. Stay safe. We're closer to justice than you know. Tom." Attached were files that made my own research look amateur, financial records showing suspicious money transfers after each family death, medical reports that didn't quite add up, and photographs of my parents meeting with the same funeral director after each tragedy, like they had death on speed dial. "He's been building a case," I breathed. "He already knew everything I found and more." Mrs. Patterson's phone rang. She answered, her face going pale. "The investigator is showing a warrant to the head librarian, says he has authority to search for a dangerous runaway who might be hiding here." That's not possible. Real warrants don't work like that for runaways. Which means it's fake and he's desperate enough to use it. She helped me finish packing. There's an old service tunnel that connects to the building next door. It's how they used to move books before the renovation. Go through there, exit through the coffee shop, and meet Bradley at the place he specified. She handed me an envelope. "Emergency cash. And Dulcie, don't come back here. They know about this place now." We hugged quickly, both of us aware this might be goodbye forever. This woman who'd risked everything for a stranger who'd given me hope when I had none, who'd believed me when no one else would. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." "Make them pay," she whispered back, "for Emma, for all of them." The service tunnel was narrow and dusty, clearly unused for years. I crawled through darkness following Mrs. Patterson's directions until I emerged in a storage room that smelled of coffee beans. The shop was busy, easy to slip through unnoticed, but as I pushed out onto the street, I spotted him immediately, the thin man from Mrs. Patterson's photo, standing across from the library entrance, watching. I pulled up my hood and walked the opposite direction, forcing myself not to run. 3 blocks away, I ducked into an alley to catch my breath and check Bradley's instructions. We were to meet at a diner on the east side somewhere my parents' investigator hopefully wouldn't think to look. The journey took an hour using every technique Marcus had taught me. Double backtake, unexpected turns, use reflections to check for followers. By the time I reached Mabel's 24-hour diner, I was confident I'd lost any tail. Tom Bradley wasn't what I expected. Instead of the grizzled film noir detective, I'd imagined he was clean-cut mid-40s, looking more like an accountant than someone who investigated murders. He sat in a corner booth, positioned to see all entrances. "Dulce Martinez," he said quietly as I slid in across from him. "You look like your sister." Those 5 words hit harder than any punch. "You knew Emma." I've studied her case extensively, even found some people who remembered her. Smart girl. Too smart for her own good, maybe. He pulled out a tablet, angled so only I could see it. "Before we start, I need you to know something. I'm not just investigating your family for clients. This is personal." He showed me a photograph of a young woman, early 20s, bright smile. "My niece, Rebecca. She worked at the same insurance company as your mother 10 years ago. Became friends with the family, even house sat for them once. Then she discovered some discrepancies in policy payouts. She came to me for advice, said she thought the Martinezes were committing fraud. What happened to her? His jaw tightened. Carbon monoxide leak in her apartment 2 days after she talked to me. Investigators ruled it accidental, a faulty heater. But Rebecca was meticulous about safety. She'd just had that heater inspected the week before. Another victim, another accident. How many more were out there? So you've been investigating them ever since? On and off, but carefully. Your parents are connected, have friends in useful places. Every time I got close to something concrete, witnesses would disappear or change their stories. He locked eyes with me. Until now, you're the first person to survive their attempt and stay free long enough to gather evidence. That makes you invaluable and incredibly endangered. He flipped through screens on his tablet, showing me his files. They were extensive financial forensics, showing how my parents had accumulated wealth through insurance payouts and inheritances. Photographs of them at casino resorts and on luxury vacations, always shortly after a family member's death. Records showing they'd consulted with estate lawyers before each accident. But here's what really caught my attention. Bradley continued pulling up a complex chart. The pattern of deaths, it's not random. They target specific people at specific times, always related to inheritance milestones. Your Aunt Maria was killed just before her trust fund fully vested. Emma disappeared right before she could access her college fund, which reverted to your parents. I was supposed to disappear before turning 14. I finished. Why 14? Your grandmother's will has a provision. Any grandchild who dies or is declared legally incompetent before age 14 has their share redistributed to the surviving family members. After 14, the inheritance is locked in, only accessible at 21. My birthday was in 3 months. They'd tried to eliminate me just in time. There's more, Bradley said. That investigator looking for you, his name is Marcus Webb. He's not really a private investigator. He's a fixer. Someone rich people hire to clean up messy situations. They hired him to finish what they started. Most likely. Which means they know you're alive and talking to someone. He closed the tablet. Dulcie, I have enough evidence to take to the FBI, but it's all circumstantial. I need direct testimony, someone who can connect the dots for a jury. But testifying means coming out of hiding, facing them in court. It means risk. And if I don't? They keep killing. Your cousins, second cousins, anyone who might inherit, and they'll never stop hunting you. He leaned forward. But if we do this right, if we're smart about it, we can end this. All of it. A waitress approached and we ordered food I didn't taste. My mind raced with possibilities and dangers. Trust no one, Marcus had said. But I was already trusting Bradley with my life. How do we do it? I asked finally. First, we need to get you somewhere safe. I have contacts in the U.S. Marshals who run witness protection. Not official WITSEC, but a safe house while we build the case. Second, we need more evidence. The FBI will want everything airtight before moving against people with your parents' connections. And Jake, my brother, Bradley's expression darkened. Jake is complicated. I have evidence he's been involved in at least 2 attempts, including the girl who hired me initially. But recently, he pulled up another file. He's been making large donations to homeless shelters and runaway programs. Either he's building a charitable cover story or he's guilty, I said. Jake had always been distant but never cruel. Could guilt have changed him? Possibly. We'll need to be careful around him. Bradley signaled for the check. For now, let's get you to the safe house. We'll have time to plan once you're secure. We left separately, him first, me, 5 minutes later. But as I pushed through the diner door, I saw him, Marcus Webb, the fake investigator, standing by a black sedan across the street. Our eyes met for a split second before I ducked back inside. Back door! I hissed to a startled cook pushing through the kitchen. I could hear the front door opening as I burst into the rear alley. Run, my instincts screamed. But running meant abandoning Bradley, meant losing my chance at justice. I crouched behind a dumpster, how many of those had hidden me now, and pulled out the phone Mrs. Patterson had given me. Bradley answered immediately. "Where are you?" "Behind the diner. Webb is out front. He saw me." "Stay put. I'm circling back." 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. Then Bradley's unremarkable Honda pulled into the alley. I dove into the back seat, staying low as we pulled away. "He'll follow," I said. "Let him try." Bradley drove with practiced calm, making seemingly random turns. I've been evading tails for 20 years. Besides, we're not going far. We pulled into a parking garage downtown. Bradley led me through a maze of levels and stairwells, eventually emerging in a different building entirely. An elevator took us to the 14th floor, and an office door marked Meridian Consulting. Inside was nothing like an office. It was set up as a small apartment, kitchenette, bathroom, fold-out bed, and enough security equipment to stock a spy movie. "My unofficial headquarters," Bradley explained. "Not in my name, not connected to any of my cases. You'll be safe here while we plan our next move." Safe. The word felt foreign now. But as I sank onto the small couch, exhaustion hitting like a wave, I realized something had changed. I wasn't just running anymore. I wasn't just surviving. I was hunting them as much as they hunted me. "Tom," I said as he checked the security monitors, "what if they don't stop? What if going public makes them more desperate?" He turned to face me, expression serious. "Then we make sure they can't hurt anyone else first. Your parents have operated in shadows for 17 years. It's time to drag them into the light." Outside the reinforced windows, the city sprawled in all directions. Somewhere out there, my parents were living their lie, playing the grieving family while planning their next move. Marcus Webb was searching other fixers, maybe joining him. But I was no longer the scared 13-year-old at the gas station. I had evidence, I had allies, and I had the truth. It would have to be enough. The safe house became my world for the next week. Bradley had thought of everything: encrypted computers, secure phone lines, enough food for a month. But isolation weighs heavy when you're 13 and processing the fact that your family are murderers. I threw myself into the work helping Bradley organize evidence, creating timelines, preparing for whatever came next. It was Thursday evening when everything shifted again. I was reviewing financial records when an alert popped up on the computer Bradley had configured to monitor my old social media accounts. Someone had tagged me in a post. My friend Sarah had uploaded a photo of our volleyball team from last month, adding the caption, "Missing our star player. Dulcie, if you see this, please come home. We're all worried." My heart ached seeing my teammates' faces, my old life frozen in pixels. But what made my blood freeze was the first comment posted minutes after the photo went up. Jake Martinez. "Thanks for posting this, Sarah. Our family misses her so much. If anyone has seen my sister, please reach out. Mom and Dad are devastated." Then a private message notification from Jake. I shouldn't have opened it. Bradley had warned me against any contact, but my brother had been part of my life for 13 years. Despite everything, I clicked. "Dulcie, I know you'll see this eventually. You always checked Sarah's posts religiously. We need to talk. I know you're scared and you have every right to be, but there are things you don't understand. Things about our family that go deeper than you know. I'm at the old warehouse on Pier 47 every night this week from 10 to midnight. Come alone. Don't tell whoever is helping you. This is between family. Jake." I stared at the message, my mind racing. It could be a trap. It probably was a trap. But what if Jake knew something crucial? What if he wanted out too? Bradley was meeting with his FBI contact tonight. He'd made me promise to stay put, to not answer the door for anyone. But the warehouse was only 20 minutes away, and I'd gotten good at moving through the city unseen. The decision was stupid, reckless. Everything street-smart Marcus had taught me screamed against it, but I went anyway. I left a note for Bradley just in case. Took the emergency phone and a small canister of pepper spray he'd left in the kitchen drawer. The city felt different at night now, full of shadows that could hide Webb or worse. Pier 47 was abandoned part of the old industrial district that developers kept promising to revitalize. The warehouse Jake specified was a hulking structure of rust and broken windows. Every instinct I had screamed danger, but I pushed forward. Jake stood in a pool of light from a camping lantern, looking older than his 20 years. He'd lost weight, dark circles shadowing his eyes. When he saw me, his face crumbled with what looked like genuine relief. "Dulcie, God, you're okay. You're really okay." He started toward me, but I held up a hand. "Stay there, talk from there." He stopped, nodding sadly. "Smart. You were always the smart one. Smarter than me, anyway." "Did you kill Emma?" The question erupted without planning. "Were you part of it?" Jake's legs seemed to give out. He sank onto a crate, head in his hands. "I didn't kill her, but I might as well have. I knew. The night before she disappeared, I knew what they were planning." "And you didn't warn her?" "I was 15. The words echoed through the empty space. "I was 15 and terrified, and they said if I warned her, I'd be next, that accidents could happen to anyone who didn't understand family loyalty." "So you let them murder our sister?" "I've lived with it every day since. The nightmares, the guilt. Do you know why I really wanted to meet?" He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "To give you this." He pulled out a small digital recorder. I've been recording them for 2 years. Every conversation about family business, every planning session. I couldn't save Emma, but maybe I can save you. My hand shook as I took the device, maintaining my distance. "Why now? Why not give this to police earlier?" "Because I was a coward. Because I benefited from their crimes even as I hated them for it. The cars, the college tuition, the trust fund, all blood money. But when they abandoned you," his voice broke, "you were just a kid. Emma was at least a teenager, but I couldn't let them do it again." "Is that why you've been donating to runaway shelters?" His head snapped up. "How did you know about that?" "I have help. People who've been investigating our parents for years." "Good. That's good." He wiped his eyes. "Listen, there's something else. Something about why they do this. It's not just money, though, that's part of it. Our grandmother, Dad's mom, she wasn't just wealthy. She knew things about the family history, dark things. She kept journals, documented everything. Dad and Mom aren't the first in our family to cull relatives." My stomach churned. "What? It goes back generations. Some twisted family tradition about keeping the bloodline strong by eliminating the weak, the ones who might talk, who might break the cycle. Grandma tried to stop it by spreading the inheritance wide, making it harder to consolidate power, but that just gave them more targets. Where are these journals?" "That's what I'm trying to find. Emma was looking for them before they killed her. She left notes in code places she'd searched. I've been following her trail." He stood slowly. "Dulcie, they're getting desperate. Hiring Webb was just the start. They know you're out there building a case. They're planning something bigger." "How do you know?" "Because they asked me to help. Wanted me to use my connection with Sarah to track you down. I've been stalling, but..." He pulled out his phone, showing me a text thread. "They're threatening her now. Said if I don't produce results, my girlfriend might have an accident." "Sarah's not your girlfriend." "They don't know that, but she's still in danger because of her connection to you." He pocketed the phone. "You need to know about the wedding." I'd almost forgotten about the wedding invitation that started this journey. "Your wedding? It's not real." "Well, Amanda's real, but the wedding is a trap. They know you'll come or at least make contact. Every relative who might oppose them will be there. One location, one event." He didn't need to finish. "They're planning a mass murder. Nothing that obvious, but accidents happen at destination weddings. Food poisoning, boating mishaps, car crashes on winding roads. They've already scouted locations with lots of potential for tragedy." He pulled out a folder. "Here. Everything about the wedding, plans the guest list, who they consider threats. Take it to whoever's helping you." I took the folder, mind reeling. A family tradition of murder, generations of culling the weak, and now a wedding designed as a killing field. Jake, come with me. We can protect you. He shook his head. If I disappear, they'll know you have inside information. I'm more useful playing along for now. Besides, he gestured to the warehouse around us. This isn't the only copy of those recordings. I've hidden dozens. If something happens to me, they'll surface. Don't be a hero. Look what happened to Emma when she tried to stop them alone. I'm not alone anymore. You're out there building a case. Just be careful, Dulcie, and know that I'm sorry. For everything. For not protecting Emma, for benefiting from their crimes, for being too weak to stop them sooner. A sound from outside made us both freeze. Footsteps on gravel, multiple sets. Go, Jake whispered urgently. Back exit through the offices. Go! I ran clutching the recorder and folder. Behind me, I heard car doors slamming, voices calling Jake's name. Not our parents, they'd never dirty their own hands. But Webb, maybe, or others like him. The offices were a maze of decay and debris. I navigated by moonlight and memory of similar buildings explored during my homeless weeks. Behind me, shouts echoed through the warehouse. Jake's voice rose above them, playing confused, asking what was wrong. I burst out onto a different street, immediately blending into a group of late-night workers heading home. My hands shook as I texted Bradley. Coming back, have information, being followed. His response was instant. Stay public, main streets only. I'm sending help. The 20-minute journey stretched into an hour of doubling back and hiding in late-night businesses. By the time I reached the safe house building, a woman I'd never seen before was waiting by the entrance. Bradley sent me, she said quietly, showing FBI credentials. Let's get you inside. Bradley was pacing when we arrived, his usual calm cracked. What were you thinking I told you to stay put? I handed him Jake's evidence. Family emergency. His anger evaporated as he examined the recorder and files. This is everything we need. Documentation of conspiracy planning, historical pattern. He looked up. Your brother gave you this. He's been collecting it for 2 years, living with the guilt of Emma's death. I collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion hitting hard. Tom, it's bigger than we thought. This isn't just my parents. It's generational. A family tradition of murder. Bradley sank into a chair, processing. That explains the sophistication. They learned from their parents who learned from theirs. Refined techniques established networks, inherited connections to fixers and corrupt officials. And now they're planning to use Jake's wedding to eliminate multiple targets at once. Not if we stop them first. He pulled out his phone. This recording combined with what we already have is enough. I'm calling my FBI contact. It's time to make this official. As he made the call, I thought about Jake in that warehouse. My brother, who'd carried the weight of Emma's death for 5 years, who'd finally found the courage to act even if it came too late for our sister. The recorder contained hours of content. Bradley and I listened to snippets while waiting for the FBI. My parents' voices casual as they discussed murder, like others discussed grocery lists, planning accidents, comparing methods, even laughing about past successes. One conversation made me physically ill. My mother describing Emma's final moments. She actually thought we were taking her to look at colleges, even thanked us for supporting her dreams, right up until Robert pushed her. My father's response, the grateful ones are always easiest. They never see it coming. By dawn, our safe house was full of federal agents. Bradley's contact, Special Agent Rivera, had brought a team specializing in organized crime and murder-for-hire conspiracies. They took my statement, made copies of everything, began planning their approach. We'll need you to testify, Rivera told me. Your direct testimony combined with this evidence will ensure convictions, but we'll protect you. Official witness protection this time. What about Jake? He's still with them, pretending everything's normal. We'll extract him carefully. Can't tip our hand too early. She studied the wedding files. This gives us an opportunity. If they're planning something at the wedding, we can catch them in the act. You want to use the wedding as a trap. Sometimes the best way to catch predators is to let them think they're hunting. I thought about all the relatives on that guest list marked for death because they might inherit something. All potential victims of a tradition that had claimed who knows how many lives over generations. Do it, I said, but get everyone out safely. Rivera smiled grimly. That's the plan. Your family's killing days are over. As the agents worked, I stood by the window watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, my parents were planning murder. Jake was playing a dangerous game. Mrs. Patterson was probably worried sick. And Marcus, the homeless teen who'd taught me to survive, was still on the streets, unaware his lessons had helped bring down a dynasty of killers. The scared 13-year-old was gone. In her place stood a survivor who'd helped expose a conspiracy spanning generations. Emma would have justice. All of them would. The hunt was almost over, but the hardest part, facing them in court telling the world what my family really was, still lay ahead. The FBI operation required patience. While they built their case and planned the wedding trap, I remained in protective custody. 3 weeks of debriefings, recorded testimonies, and careful preparation. Agent Rivera became a constant presence, teaching me how to testify, how to stay calm under cross-examination. But isolation, even protective isolation, wears on you. Bradley visited daily, updating me on the investigation's progress. My parents continued their normal routines, unaware their every move was being watched. Jake maintained his cover-feeding information to the FBI while playing the dutiful son. It was Mrs. Patterson who provided unexpected relief. Bradley had made contact with her, assuring her I was safe. She sent books, letters of encouragement, and crucially updates about the library community I'd left behind. One letter concerned me. There's a new woman volunteering with our youth programs, Nancy Williams. She seems particularly interested in helping runaway teens. Something feels off about her, but I can't pinpoint what. I showed the letter to Rivera. Mrs. Patterson has good instincts. Might be worth checking. Rivera nodded, making a note. We'll look into it. Can't be too careful with your family's network. That afternoon, Bradley arrived with troubling news. We've been tracking your parents' communications. They've hired someone new. Not a fixer like Webb, but someone who specializes in finding missing children. A woman named Nancy Williams. My blood ran cold. She's at the library near Mrs. Patterson. We know. We've been monitoring her since she showed up. Bradley pulled up a file on his tablet. Nancy Williams doesn't exist before 6 months ago. The identity is completely fabricated, but we tracked her real name, Nicole Vance. She runs what looks like a foster home for troubled teens. Looks like no official licensing, no government oversight, and teens who go there have a tendency to disappear. The room spun, another predator hunting vulnerable kids, but this one was connected to my parents somehow. Rivera took over. We've been investigating similar operations. There's a network of these fake foster homes all connected to wealthy families who need problems to disappear. Kids who might inherit money, who might talk about family secrets, who might testify against relatives. My parents hired her to find me. More than that, we intercepted communications suggesting they hired her to make sure you never surface again, permanently. Rivera's expression was grim. But this gives us an opportunity. If we can document her operation, connect it to your parents, it's another charge to add. Conspiracy to commit murder across state lines. You want to use me as bait? No, absolutely not. Bradley's voice was firm. You've risked enough. But Rivera looked thoughtful. Not bait, but we need someone on the inside to document what's happening there. Someone who could pass as a runaway. I won't let you send Dulcie back into danger, Bradley insisted. I'm not suggesting we do. Rivera pulled up another file. We have an undercover officer who specializes in these operations. Officer Kim Chen, 22 but looks 16. She's extracted dozens of kids from trafficking situations. Let me help, I said. Both adults turned to stare at me. Not go inside, but help plan. I know how runaways think what would seem believable. I can help her prepare." They exchanged glances, then Rivera nodded. "Actually, that could be valuable. You've lived it. You know what details would ring true or false." Over the next 2 days, I worked with Officer Chen. She was petite and tough, with eyes that had seen too much despite her youth. I taught her the small things, how kids on the street layer clothing where they hide precious items, the wariness that becomes second nature. "Never turn your back on a door," I told her. "Always know your exits. And if someone offers help that seems too good, it usually is." She absorbed everything, asking detailed questions about my time on the streets. In return, she shared stories of other kids she'd saved, building my confidence that she could handle whatever Nancy Williams was running. The plan was simple. Chen would appear at the library, play the desperate runaway, let Nancy rescue her. She'd document everything inside the house while the FBI built their case. What none of us expected was how fast it would go wrong. Chen made contact on a Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, she'd activated her emergency beacon. The FBI raided the house within an hour, finding not just Chen, but 4 other girls locked in the basement. The foster home was a way station for human trafficking with connections to buyers across the country. Rivera showed me photos from the raid, carefully edited to protect the victims' identities. "Your instincts about Mrs. Patterson's letter might have saved these girls' lives. Nancy was planning to move them within days." But the real shock came from the documents they found. Nancy had photos of me, detailed information about my habits, my time at the library, even my friendship with Marcus. My parents had given her everything. "There's more," Rivera said quietly. "We found communications about other operations. Your parents weren't just using Nancy to find you. They've been supplying kids to her operation for years. Runaways who might talk foster children, who knew too much, any child who posed a threat to their network." I thought I couldn't be more horrified by my family. I was wrong. "Emma?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "We don't know. Nancy's records only go back 7 years. But," Rivera hesitated, "we found a Jane Doe case from 5 years ago. A girl matching Emma's description was found escaped from a trafficking ring in Colorado. She died from injuries sustained during captivity. The DNA was too degraded to identify her definitively, but the timeline—" I couldn't breathe. Emma might not have died on that cliff. She might have survived the push only to face something worse. Months of captivity, of horror, before finally dying alone and unidentified. "I'm going to be sick," I managed. Bradley held my hair as I emptied my stomach, the full evil of my parents hitting like a physical blow. They weren't just killers. They were suppliers to a network of child predators using murder attempts as recruitment tools. When I could speak again, my voice was steel. "I want them destroyed, not just arrested. I want their entire network burned to the ground." "That's the plan," Rivera assured me. "Nancy's already talking, trying to cut a deal. She's naming names, including your parents. The wedding trap is still on, but now we're looking at federal trafficking charges on top of murder." Chen visited that evening bandaged but determined. "Those girls are safe because of your warning," she told me. "You saved them." "You saved them, I just wrote a letter." "No." Her voice was firm. "You survived long enough to expose this. You gathered evidence when everyone else was fooled. Those girls are free because you didn't give up." That night, I lay awake thinking about Emma. Had she known about the trafficking? Is that why they had to silence her? Or had she simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, another profitable casualty in their sick enterprise? Bradley had news in the morning. "Jake made contact. Your parents are accelerating the wedding timeline. They're spooked by Nancy's arrest, though they don't know we've connected her to them. The wedding is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks until the trap sprung. 2 weeks until I'd face them again, this time in a courtroom instead of a gas station." "There's something else," Bradley continued. "We found Marcus." My heart leapt. "The kid who helped me?" "Living in a youth shelter downtown. He's had a rough time, but he's alive." Bradley smiled at my expression. "Want to see him? Is it safe?" Rivera considered. Actually, it might be good for you. Remind you that some stories have happy endings. We'll arrange a secure meeting. 2 days later, in a protected location, I saw Marcus again. He looked healthier, cleaner, but his eyes still held that street wariness. When he saw me, his face split into the first genuine smile I'd witnessed from him. Dulcie. You made it. He hugged me quickly, then stepped back embarrassed. Sorry, I worried about you. That first night you looked so lost. You saved my life, I told him. Those survival skills, they kept me alive long enough to expose something huge. I couldn't share details, but I told him I was safe, that the people who'd hurt me were facing justice. His eyes widened when I mentioned the FBI witness protection upcoming trials. You're going to testify against your parents. Against a lot of people. Marcus, what you taught me helped take down a trafficking ring. Kids are safe because you helped me survive. He shook his head in wonder. I just showed you which dumpsters had food. You showed me how to survive, how to stay invisible, how to think like someone hunted. I gripped his hands. You're a hero even if you don't see it. We talked for an hour. He was getting his GED planning for community college. The shelter had connected him with services therapy, hope for a future. When it was time to leave, he pressed something into my hand. I kept it, he said. Figured if you made it, you'd want it back. If not, well, it reminded me that sometimes people do. It was the note he'd left me, trust no one. But he'd added something on the other side, except the ones who prove you can. As the FBI agents drove me back to the safe house, I clutched that piece of paper. In 2 weeks, I'd face my parents in court. I'd tell the world what they'd done to Emma, to me, to countless others. It would be the hardest thing I'd ever done. But I wouldn't do it alone. I had Bradley and Rivera, Mrs. Patterson and Chen, and even Marcus cheering me on from afar. My parents had tried to isolate me to make me disappear like smoke. Instead, they'd created a survivor backed by an army of people determined to see justice done. The foster home trap had been sprung. The wedding trap waited. And somewhere in federal custody, Nancy Williams was singing every secret she knew about my family's crimes. They thought abandoning me at that gas station was the end of my story. They were wrong. It was just the beginning. The video call came at 3 a.m, jarring me from restless sleep. Rivera and Bradley had warned me something was coming, but they'd been cryptic about details. Just be ready for a shock, Rivera had said. A good one for once. I stumbled to the secure laptop, entering the complex password sequence they'd taught me. The encrypted connection took forever to establish. When the screen finally cleared, I found myself looking at an elderly woman with sharp blue eyes and silver hair pulled into an elegant bun. Hello, Dulcie. She said, her voice carrying a slight tremor that might have been emotion or age. I'm sorry we have to meet like this. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. You're dead. Dad said you died 3 years ago. We had a funeral. Ruth Martinez smiled sadly. Your father says many things that aren't true, but in this case, he believes it himself. The body they buried was a very convincing fake courtesy of the U.S. Marshals Service. Grandma, the word came out as barely a whisper. Yes, sweetheart, it's really me. Tears tracked down her weathered cheeks. I've been watching over you from afar. When they abandoned you at that gas station, it nearly killed me to not intervene directly. But I had to wait, had to let the investigation build. Investigation. How long have you known what they were doing? Ruth's expression hardened. I suspected after Maria died. My daughter was too careful a driver to simply plunge off a cliff, but I had no proof. Then Emma started asking questions, noticed the same patterns you did. She came to me with her suspicions. Emma knew you were investigating. She was helping me. Smart girl, your sister. Too smart for her own good. Ruth pulled out a tissue, dabbing her eyes. The night before she disappeared, she called me. Said she'd found something important in the old family records. She was going to bring them to me the next day. But they killed her first. They tried, but Emma was resourceful. She hid the documents before they took her on that final trip. Ruth leaned closer to the camera. Dulcie, I need you to understand something about our family. The sickness in it goes back generations, but so does the resistance to it. Your great-grandmother fought it. I fought it. Emma fought it. Now it's your turn. Where are the documents Emma found hidden in the last place your parents would look, the one place in the house they never go? She smiled slightly. The attic crawl space above your room, behind the insulation near the south wall. Emma knew you were the only one small enough to fit back there when you were older. My mind raced. Emma had been in my room that last night, hugging me extra long, telling me she loved me. Had she been hiding evidence just feet from where I slept? After Emma disappeared, I knew I was next. Ruth continued. Your parents had already tried twice. Food poisoning at Sunday dinner that only affected me. Brake lines cut on my car. So I reached out to Tom Bradley. Yes, I'm the one who hired him initially. Together we staged my death. But the funeral, the will reading, all theater. The will they read was fake. My real will is quite different. Her eyes glinted. You see, I've spent 3 years documenting everything. Not just your parents' crimes, but the entire family history. Every suspicious death, every missing relative, every insurance payout. It goes back 60 years, Dulcie. Your grandfather, his father before him, killers all. I felt sick. Why would a family do this for generations? Power, money, and a twisted philosophy that the family must be pruned to stay strong. They call it the tradition. Only the ruthless survive to pass on the name. Ruth's voice dripped disgust. But there have always been those who fought back. Your great-aunt Helen exposed her brother in 1972. Your second cousin Michael wore a wire to his own father's arrest in 1993. We're not all monsters, Dulcie. Just enough to make the family name a curse. Why didn't you go to the police years ago? With what proof suspicions? The word of an old woman against her respected son and daughter-in-law. She shook her head. I needed evidence. Emma died trying to get it. You succeeded where we failed. Not alone, Tom Bradley, Agent Rivera, Mrs. Patterson, I had help. Because you were brave enough to accept it, smart enough to document everything, strong enough to survive. Ruth's pride was evident. You're a true Martinez woman, not the twisted version your parents represent, but what we were meant to be. Protectors, not predators. Bradley appeared in frame beside her. We should tell her the rest. Rest, I asked. Ruth nodded. The documents Emma hid aren't just family records. They're originals, birth certificates, death certificates, insurance documents, all proving the forgeries your family has used for decades. But more importantly, there's a ledger, a complete record of the tradition, written by your great-grandfather, names, dates, methods, and most crucially, where the bodies are hidden. My breath caught. Bodies? Not everyone got public funerals, dear. Some simply moved away or lost touch. The ledger details where they really ended up. Ruth's face was stone. Emma found it all. That's why they had to silence her immediately. If we could get that ledger, it would prove conspiracy going back generations, show pattern and practice, turn individual murders into organized crime. Bradley leaned forward, but we can't legally enter the house to search. Unless I invited you, I said slowly. It was my home, too, my room. Rivera must have been listening because her voice came through the speakers. Absolutely not. We're not sending you back into that house. You wouldn't be sending me. I'd be choosing to go. The plan formed as I spoke. My parents don't know I'm cooperating with you. What if I appeared to break from protective custody, showed up at home playing the prodigal daughter? I could retrieve the documents while wearing a wire. Too dangerous, Bradley said immediately. But Ruth looked thoughtful. It could work. Robert and Linda always underestimate their children. They'd believe Dulcie came crawling back, especially if she seemed properly broken. "Grandma," Bradley protested. "Don't grandma me, Thomas. This is our chance to end it all." She focused on me. "But only if you're certain. This isn't just dangerous, it's the hardest thing you could do. Facing them, pretending to be defeated, when every instinct will scream to run or fight." I thought about Emma dying alone, whether on a cliff or in some trafficking hellhole. About Aunt Maria, whose only crime was inheriting money. About all the names I'd found in my research lives cut short by family tradition. "When?" I asked. "The wedding is in 10 days, Rivera's voice said. "If you're going to do this, it needs to be soon. We need time to analyze whatever you find." "Tomorrow," I said. "Give me tonight to prepare and I'll go tomorrow." Ruth wiped away fresh tears. "You're so much like Emma, so much like your great-grandmother Helen, the ones who fight back." "What happened to Helen?" I asked, though I suspected I knew. "Officially, car accident 3 days after she testified against her brother." Ruth's smile was sharp. "Unofficially, she lived another 40 years under a new name in Canada. I visited her every summer until she passed. Natural causes in her sleep, surrounded by the family she built far from the Martinez curse." Hope bloomed in my chest. Some of us escaped. Some of us survived to build new lives. "Dulce," Ruth said softly, "whatever happens, know that I love you, that Emma loved you, that there is good in our bloodline worth saving." "I know, Grandma. I'll get those documents. For Emma, for all of them." The call ended, leaving me alone with the weight of tomorrow's mission. But I wasn't truly alone. Somewhere, my grandmother was alive and fighting for justice. My brother was risking his life maintaining his cover. Mrs. Patterson was protecting other vulnerable kids at the library. Marcus was building a new life at the shelter. And Emma had hidden the keys to bringing down a dynasty of death, trusting her 8-year-old sister would someday be strong enough to find them. Tomorrow I would walk back into hell, but this time I wouldn't be a victim. I'd be an avenging angel with a wire and a mission. The tradition of murder ended with my generation. No more Martinez children would disappear for the crime of existing. No more inheritances built on blood. I spent the night practicing my story, my defeated posture, the tears I'd need to sell my return. By dawn, I was ready. Time to go home. Time to rob my parents of their last secrets. Time to prove that sometimes the pruned branches grow back stronger than the poisoned tree that cut them. The FBI safe house buzzed with activity as dawn broke. Technicians tested tiny recording devices while Rivera's team rehearsed contingency plans. I sat in the center of it all, letting them transform me back into the desperate runaway my parents expected to see. "Your clothes need to look worn but not destroyed," the costume specialist explained, artfully adding stains and tears to thrift store finds. "You've been surviving, not thriving." Bradley paced nervously. "I still think this is too dangerous. What if they drug her? What if they have weapons?" "Every agent in the city will be within 2 minutes of the house," Rivera assured him. "The moment she says our safe word, we move in." "What's the safe word?" I asked. "Volleyball. Natural for you to mention, but specific enough we'll know." Rivera knelt before me. "Dulcie, you can back out any time. Even once you're there, just say the word and we'll extract you." "I won't need it. They want to believe I'm broken. It confirms their worldview that the weak always return to beg for scraps." I thought of my father's cold eyes at the gas station. They'll be so satisfied they won't look closely. The tech team fitted me with 3 separate recording devices, one in my shoe, one sewn into my bra, and one disguised as a button. "Redundancy," the lead tech explained. "If they find one, we still have audio." By noon, I was ready. The plan was simple: approach the house around 2 p.m. when my mother would be home alone. Play the traumatized child who'd learned her lesson. Get to my room, retrieve Emma's hidden documents, and get out. "Your grandmother confirmed the house layout hasn't changed," Rivera said, showing me blueprints. Your room is exactly as you left it. They've kept everything the same, probably expecting you to return eventually. Or wanting to preserve the crime scene for their sick satisfaction, I muttered. The drive to my old neighborhood took 30 minutes but felt like hours. Agent Chen, posing as a social worker, would drop me 3 blocks away. I'd walk the rest, giving our surveillance teams time to position themselves. You're brave, Chen said as we pulled over. Those girls from the trafficking house are safe because you started this chain of events. Remember that if things get hard in there. I squeezed her hand, then stepped onto the familiar sidewalk. Every house triggered memories, birthday parties, Halloween nights, normal childhood moments, before I understood the monster lurking in my own home. The walk cleared my head. By the time I reached our pristine 2-story colonial, I'd fully inhabited my role. Exhausted runaway. Defeated daughter. Lesson learned. I rang the doorbell with a shaking hand that wasn't entirely an act. My mother answered within seconds as if she'd been waiting by the door. Linda Martinez looked exactly the same perfectly styled brown hair designer clothes smile that never reached her eyes. "Dulcie!" She gasped, hand flying to her chest. "Oh my God, Dulcie!" She pulled me into a hug that felt like being embraced by a mannequin. "My baby, you're home. You're finally home." "Mom!" I croaked, making my voice small and broken. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right. The world is... it's so hard out there." "Oh, sweetheart, come inside. You're safe now." She guided me in, calling out, "Robert, Robert, come quickly. She's home." My father appeared from his study, and I saw genuine surprise flash across his face before he schooled it into concern. They hadn't expected me to return on my own. "Dulcie." He approached slowly like I might bolt. "We've been so worried." "I'm sorry, Dad. About the sleepover, about arguing. You tried to teach me a lesson, and I let tears fall, not entirely fake, as I stood in this house of horrors. I should have just walked home that night like you said. Woman up. I understand now." They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Satisfaction, suspicion. "Well, you're home now," Mom said. "That's what matters. You must be exhausted and hungry. Let me make you something." Could I shower first and maybe lie down in my room? I haven't slept in a real bed in so long. Of course. Mom's enthusiasm seemed genuine, but I knew better. She was playing a role too, the relieved mother. "Your room is exactly as you left it. We knew you'd come home eventually." Dad studied me more carefully. "Where have you been, Dulcie?" We had people looking everywhere. Hiding, shelters sometimes when they didn't ask for ID, behind buildings mostly. I hugged myself, making my voice smaller. There was this man who said he'd help me, but he wanted things. I ran. I've been running ever since. The lie worked perfectly. They wanted to believe I'd been hurt, traumatized, taught a lesson about disobeying them. "No one will hurt you here," Dad said, and the irony would have been laughable if it weren't so sick. "You're safe with family." I nodded tearfully and headed upstairs. Everything was indeed exactly as I'd left it. Volleyball trophies, school photos, the normalcy I'd never have again. But I wasn't here for nostalgia. The attic access was in my closet ceiling. I stood on my desk chair, pushed aside the panel, and hauled myself up. Dust and insulation filled the cramped space, making me sneeze. Behind the insulation near the south wall, just as Grandma had said. My fingers found a plastic-wrapped bundle wedged between beams. Emma had wrapped it carefully, protecting it from moisture and time. Inside were 3 leather journals and a manila folder stuffed with documents. I opened one journal at random and nearly dropped it. Names, dates, and methods filled every page in my great-grandfather's careful script, a complete record of murders spanning 60 years. The tradition continues. One entry read, "Carlos showed weakness questioning our methods. The family voted. His accident has been arranged." I photographed each page with the phone Rivera had given me, uploading to their secure server. The documents in the folder were equally damning: forged death certificates, insurance policies, even photos of grave sites for people who were supposedly missing. A knock on my door made me freeze. Dulcie, honey, I made soup. Coming, Mom. I called, shoving everything back in the plastic, but I kept one thing, Emma's student ID card, tucked between pages. Proof she'd hidden this proof she'd tried to stop them. I slid down from the attic, brushed off the dust, and hid the ID in my shoe next to the recording device. Downstairs, both parents waited in the kitchen. A bowl of soup steamed on the table, and every instinct screamed not to eat it. But refusing would break character. I took a spoonful, then another. It tasted normal, though that meant nothing with my family. So, Dad said casually, "Did anyone help you while you were gone? Anyone we should thank?" A test. No, everyone wanted something in return. Money or other things. I shuddered. I learned not to trust anyone. Hard lesson, but valuable. He seemed satisfied. "Your brother will be happy you're home. He's been beside himself." Jake was worried. "Of course he loves you, Dulcie. We all do. That's why we had to be firm about your behavior." Mom reached over to squeeze my hand. Sometimes, parents have to make hard choices for their children's own good. I wanted to scream. Instead, I yawned. "I'm so tired. Could I sleep for a while, just a few hours?" "Of course. But Dulcie." Dad's voice stopped me at the doorway. "Your phone and computer are in your room. We kept your service active, hoping you'd call. Maybe let your friends know you're safe. They've been worried, too." Another test. They wanted to see who I'd contact who'd been helping me. "Maybe later," I said vaguely. "Right now, I just want to sleep." Back in my room, I did check the phone. Dozens of missed calls from Sarah, from teammates, from teachers. All from months ago, eventually tapering off as hope died. My parents had kept the illusion of searching while knowing exactly where they'd abandoned me. I lay on the bed, fighting the urge to run immediately. Rivera had said to seem natural, not to rush, but every minute in this house felt like drowning. 2 hours. I'd give it 2 hours, then make an excuse to leave. Get the documents to the FBI, let them build their final case. The wedding was in 8 days. 8 days until my parents faced justice. I must have dozed despite my anxiety because I woke to voices downstairs. Multiple voices. My blood froze as I recognized one. Marcus Webb, the fixer who'd been hunting me. "She's upstairs," my father was saying. "Came home on her own just as you predicted, traumatized, compliant. The streets did what we couldn't, broke her spirit." "Excellent," Webb replied. "And she hasn't contacted anyone. No mention of help." "None. She learned her lesson about trusting strangers." They laughed, the sound making my skin crawl. But Webb's next words froze my blood. "Good, because we found Nancy's replacement. Someone even better at handling difficult children. They'll be here tonight to collect her." Collect me, like a package, like cargo. My parents were never planning to let me stay. This was just another trap, another abandonment. But this time, I'd disappear forever into some trafficking nightmare. I pulled out my phone, texting Rivera frantically. "They're planning to traffic me tonight. Webb is here. Multiple hostiles." Her response was immediate. "Say the word and we come in. But if we move now, we might lose our chance at the wedding trap. Might not get everyone in the network." "Not yet," I typed. "Let me try something." I crept to the top of the stairs, listening. They were still talking, making plans for my collection and transport. That's when I heard another familiar voice join them. Jake. My brother was there, part of the planning. "I can drug her dinner," he was saying. "Make transport easier." My heart shattered. His guilt, his recordings, his help, had it all been an act? Another family trap. But then I heard something else, a slight emphasis on certain words. "I can drug her dinner, make transport easier." He was warning me, speaking louder than necessary, ensuring I'd hear from upstairs. Jake was still playing his dangerous game, walking the tightrope between helping me and maintaining cover. I made my decision. Slipping back to my room, I grabbed the few things that mattered: Emma's ID, my evidence photos uploaded to the FBI cloud. Then I opened my window just as I had 1,000 times, sneaking out for legitimate teenage reasons. The tree outside had grown since my childhood escapes, making the descent easier. I dropped to the ground, adrenaline overriding the pain in my ankles. "Volleyball," I whispered into my hidden mic. "Volleyball, volleyball, volleyball." Then I ran. Behind me, I heard shouting as they discovered my escape. Webb's voice rose above the others, barking orders. But I knew these streets, these yards, these hidden paths between houses. More importantly, I knew FBI agents were converging from every direction. The first patrol car screeched around the corner as I reached the main road. Rivera jumped out, pulling me behind the vehicle as more units arrived. "The documents," she asked urgently. "All photographed and uploaded. 60 years of murders, all documented." I pulled Emma's ID from my shoe. She died trying to expose them, but she succeeded. We succeeded. Rivera spoke into her radio, coordinating the raid. Within minutes, my childhood home was surrounded. My parents, Webb, and several others I didn't recognize were led out in handcuffs. Jake was among them, maintaining his cover to the end. Our eyes met as they put him in a separate car. He nodded slightly, and I knew he'd seen me escape, had bought me time with his warning. "It's over," Bradley said, appearing at my elbow. "You did it." But it wasn't over. The wedding trap still waited. More network members to catch, trials to endure, truth to speak. I clutched Emma's ID card, thinking of all the victims over 60 years. They'd have justice now. The tradition of murder ended here, ended with a 13-year-old girl who refused to disappear. "Thank you," I whispered to my sister's memory. "I found them. I found them all." Rivera put her arm around me, guiding me to safety as evidence teams swarmed my former home. In 8 days, the rest would fall. But tonight, the Martinez murders were finally exposed. The tradition was broken, and I was finally truly free. The arrest of my parents made the evening news, but the FBI kept most details sealed to protect the ongoing investigation. I watched from a new safe house as reporters stood outside my childhood home, speculating about the shocking allegations against the respected Martinez family. If only they knew the full truth. What I didn't expect was the phone call that came the next morning. "Dulcie." The voice was professional but warm. "My name is Christina Chen. I'm an investigative journalist with Channel 7. I know you're probably being told not to talk to media, but I need you to hear me out. I was Emma's roommate at State College." I nearly dropped the phone. Emma's roommate for 6 months before she disappeared. She was my best friend, and I never believed the runaway story. "I've been investigating your family for 3 years. I have something you need to see." Rivera, listening on speaker, nodded her approval. Within an hour, Christina arrived at the safe house under FBI escort. She was young, maybe 25, with intense eyes and an armload of files. "Emma was scared those last few weeks." She began without preamble. "She'd found something in your grandmother's papers during spring break. She wouldn't tell me what, but she started recording conversations with your parents." My heart raced. "She made recordings." Christina pulled out a laptop. "She uploaded them to a cloud account I helped her set up. Your parents never knew. She gave me the password the night before she left for home, said if anything happened—" Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been gathering evidence ever since." The first recording made me sick. My mother's voice discussing Emma with someone I didn't recognize. "She's been asking questions about Maria. We may need to accelerate the timeline." My father's response: "The wedding excuse still works. Tell her we're scouting venues in Colorado, remote locations, cliffs for photos. She'll never suspect." "They planned it," I whispered, "weeks in advance." "There's more," Christina said grimly. "Emma wasn't just investigating. She was documenting everything in real time." She pulled up videos Emma had secretly recorded on her phone. Family dinners where my parents casually discussed problem relatives. Planning sessions disguised as normal conversation. In one video, I saw my 8-year-old self in the background playing with dolls while my parents discussed Aunt Maria's accident at the kitchen table. I'd been right there, too young to understand the monsters I lived with. "Why didn't you go to police?" Rivera asked. Christina's expression hardened. I tried. The detective I spoke to was golf buddies with your father. My concerns were dismissed, and suddenly I was facing harassment charges for stalking a grieving family. I had to back off work in the shadows. But you kept investigating. I couldn't let Emma down. I knew something terrible had happened to her. She pulled out a map marked with red X's. I've tracked everywhere your parents traveled in the past decade. Every family vacation corresponds with a relative's death or disappearance. But this is what made me call you. She showed me a list of wedding vendors my parents had contacted, florists, caterers, venues. Normal, except for one detail: they'd all been involved in previous events where relatives had died. The caterer from your Aunt Maria's birthday party before her accident, the hotel where your cousin Stephen had his heart attack at 32. They're recreating successful murder scenarios using people who've kept quiet before. Rivera immediately got on the phone sharing this information with her team. The wedding trap had just become even more critical. There's something else, Christina said, turning to me. I want to run an exclusive story. Tonight. Let the public know what's really happening before your parents' lawyers can spin it. Absolutely not, Rivera said. We can't compromise the investigation. Actually, I said slowly, what if we could use this control the narrative before my parents do? Bradley, who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward. She has a point. Your parents are well connected. Their lawyers are probably already working on a counter-narrative. Troubled teen makes wild accusations. Grief-stricken parents wrongly accused. But if the truth comes out first, I looked at Christina. You have Emma's recordings, her videos, proof this goes back years. Rivera made more phone calls. An hour of heated discussion with her superiors followed. Finally, she turned back to us. We'll allow a limited interview. No details about the wedding operation, nothing that compromises ongoing investigations. Focus on Emma on the historical pattern. Make it clear this isn't just about you, it's about decades of murders. Christina set up her equipment in the safe house living room. She was gentle but thorough, walking me through my story. The abandonment, the discovery of the pattern, finding allies who believed me. When we got to Emma, I broke down. She tried to stop them. She knew they were killers and tried to gather evidence. They murdered her for it. I looked directly at the camera. My sister died trying to protect future victims. I'm finishing what she started. Christina asked about the documents I'd found, careful not to reveal specifics. Is it true there's evidence going back generations? 60 years of murders, all documented. My family has been killing relatives for inheritance money since my great-grandfather's time. They call it the tradition. And you were to be their next victim. I thought about the gas station, the trafficking plan, all the ways they'd tried to erase me. I was supposed to disappear like the others, but I survived. I found people who believed me. And now the truth is coming out. The interview would air at 6 p.m., carefully edited by FBI media liaisons. But Christina saved her biggest revelation for the end of our session. I've been in contact with other families, she said. Other people who lost relatives to suspicious accidents, who were told they were crazy for questioning it. 12 families, Dulcie, all connected to yours through marriage or business, all with similar stories. She showed me letters, emails, messages from people who'd suffered losses they couldn't explain. A pattern of death that spread beyond blood relatives to anyone who got too close to the Martinez family's secrets. Will they come forward? I asked. They're scared, but seeing you speak out, it might give them courage. Christina packed up her equipment. Your bravery might save lives, Dulcie, future victims who would have been targeted. That evening, I watched my interview from yet another safe house surrounded by FBI agents and my small circle of protectors. Seeing my face on screen felt surreal, but Christina had done a masterful job weaving in Emma's recordings and evidence to create an undeniable narrative. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, justice for Emma was trending. Other victims' families began sharing their stories. The Martinez family narrative was crumbling under the weight of truth. My phone, a new secure one, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Rivera checked it before showing me. "You did good, kid. The truth needed to come out. Jay." Jake somehow messaging from federal custody, still looking out for me in whatever way he could. But the media storm brought unexpected consequences. By morning, 3 more suspects had fled, apparently warned by the broadcast. The wedding guest list was shrinking as co-conspirators panicked. "We're moving up the timeline," Rivera announced. "The wedding trap happens in 3 days. Can you handle testifying that soon?" 3 days to prepare for facing a room full of killers. 3 days until the final confrontation. "I'll be ready," I said. Christina's story had opened the floodgates. More journalists picked up the thread. Documentarians called. The secret massacre my family had conducted for decades was finally in the light. But exposure meant danger, too. That night, someone tried to break into the safe house. FBI agents stopped them, but the message was clear. The cornered killers were desperate. After the trial, Rivera said, "We're putting you in full witness protection. New identity, new life far from here." I nodded, understanding. Dulcie Martinez would have to disappear after all. But unlike my family's victims, I'd vanish into safety and freedom, not death. The girl from the gas station was about to help bring down a murder dynasty. Emma would have been proud. The federal courthouse looked like a fortress the morning of the wedding trap operation. FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, and local police created layers of security. Media vans lined the streets, reporters broadcasting live about the trial of the century that was actually an elaborate sting operation. Inside, I sat in a witness waiting room wearing a bulletproof vest under my dark blue court outfit. Rivera checked her earpiece, constantly coordinating with teams at the actual wedding venue 40 miles away. "Your parents' lawyers filed 17 motions this morning," Bradley informed me. "Everything from dismissing charges to claiming mental incompetence on your part. All denied." "Are they here?" I asked. "In custody transport. They'll be brought in once we're ready." He paused. "Jake's here too. He's been moved to our witness list." My heart leapt. He's testifying against them. With his recordings and inside knowledge, he's our star witness after you. Bradley smiled grimly. "Your parents don't know yet. They think he's here to support them." Rivera's earpiece crackled. "Wedding guests are arriving at the venue. Team 2 confirms visual on 15 targets." The plan was elegant. While the high-profile hearing drew media attention, the wedding was proceeding as planned at an isolated resort. Family members who'd fled after my interview had been told the hearing was a distraction, that the real plan continued. FBI agents posed as staff wedding guests, even the bride herself. "Courtroom's ready," Rivera announced. "Remember Dulcie, we need to keep them focused here while the venue team works. Tell your story, take your time. Every minute counts." I was led through secure hallways to the courtroom. It was packed journalists, victims' families, curiosity seekers. I spotted Mrs. Patterson in the gallery, Christina with her notepad, even Marcus in a borrowed suit. My army of supporters all here to witness the end. Then I saw them. My parents in orange jumpsuits and shackles seated at the defense table. They looked smaller somehow, their power stripped away. Mom's perfect hair was flat, Dad's commanding presence reduced to slumped shoulders. Our eyes met across the room. My mother's expression cycled through emotions, surprise, rage, and something that might have been fear. My father just stared as if trying to intimidate me into silence even now. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge Patricia Hawkins presiding." Judge Hawkins was known for her no-nonsense approach to organized crime. She'd overseen RICO cases, mob trials, conspiracy networks, perfect for untangling 60 years of family murders. "Ms. Martinez," the prosecutor began after opening statements, "please tell the court about October 15th of this year." I spoke clearly, letting every word carry through the silent courtroom. The argument about the sleepover, the drive to the gas station, my father's cold command to woman up. the abandonment that started my journey to this moment. Objection! My parents' lawyer interrupted. Hearsay, speculation. My clients were engaged in reasonable parenting. Overruled, Judge Hawkins cut him off. Continue, Ms. Martinez. I told it all. The night behind the dumpster. Mrs. Patterson's rescue. The discovery of the pattern. Emma, Aunt Maria, cousin after cousin, lost to accidents. The trafficking connection. The generational tradition of murder documented in my great-grandfather's journal. I'd like to submit People's Exhibit 47, the prosecutor said, displaying pages from the journal on courtroom screens. Gasps echoed as people read the clinical descriptions of planned murders. Michael showed weakness. I read from one entry. The family voted. His brake lines will be cut Tuesday. This was written 3 days before my great-uncle died in a car accident. My mother's lawyer tried interrupting repeatedly, but Judge Hawkins shut him down each time. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. 2 hours into my testimony, Rivera got a message. She showed it to the prosecutor, who smiled grimly. Your Honor, I'd like to note for the record that federal agents have just detained 17 individuals at a related location, all wanted on conspiracy charges. The wedding trap had sprung. Family members who'd thought themselves safe were being arrested in real time, their champagne toasts becoming perp walks. But the real shock came when Jake was called to testify. State your name for the record, the prosecutor instructed. Jacob Martinez. His voice was steady, but I saw his hands shake. And I'm here to testify against my parents for murder conspiracy and 60 years of family tradition that ends today. The courtroom erupted. My parents' lawyer jumped up, screaming about privilege and coercion. My mother actually stood shouting, "You ungrateful," before marshals forced her down. Jake pulled out a small recorder. I've been documenting my family's crimes for 2 years. What you're about to hear is my parents discussing their murder plans. The recordings played in devastating clarity. My parents discussing Emma's death like a business transaction, planning my abandonment, celebrating successful murders. Most damning was a conversation from just last week. Mom's voice, "If Dulcie surfaces at the trial, we have backup plans. The judge, the prosecutor, even that journalist, all problems can be solved." Dad's response, "The tradition continues no matter what. We have people in place." "Bailiffs secure the defendants," Judge Hawkins ordered sharply. Extra marshals surrounded my parents. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, "given this evidence of ongoing conspiracy and threats against court officials, the government requests immediate protective custody for all witnesses and enhanced security measures." Granted, this court is in recess. Marshals sweep this building. Nobody leaves until cleared. The security sweep found 2 individuals in the gallery with weapons. Both were connected to my family's network. The tradition had nearly claimed more victims in the very halls of justice. When court resumed, my mother made one last desperate play. She stood, tears streaming down her face, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in years. "Dulcie, please," she cried. "We're your parents. We love you. This is all a misunderstanding. These people have poisoned you against us. Come home, baby. Let us explain." I met her gaze steadily. "You left me at a gas station to die. You murdered Emma. You killed dozens of family members for money. The only poison in our family is the tradition you upheld. You ungrateful little—" Her mask finally slipped completely. "We gave you everything: private schools, nice clothes, a future, and you betrayed us for what to end up some nobody in witness protection. You could have inherited millions." "Millions built on murder," I replied. "I'd rather be a nobody with a clean conscience than a rich killer like you." Judge Hawkins had heard enough. Based on the evidence presented, including verified recordings, documented conspiracies spanning 60 years, and the ongoing threat to witnesses, this court finds sufficient cause to proceed with all charges. The defendants will be held without bail. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. As marshals prepared to lead my parents away, the courtroom doors opened. a woman in a wheelchair was brought in, her face scarred but unmistakable to those who knew her. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, "the government would like to introduce one more witness. Emma Martinez, previously thought deceased, recovered from an attempted murder by her parents 5 years ago." The courtroom exploded. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Emma alive. But I'd mourned her, carried her memory like a sacred weight. My sister, scarred in a wheelchair but gloriously alive, met my eyes across the room. "Hi, baby sister," she mouthed. I ran to her, collapsed beside the wheelchair, sobbing as her arms wrapped around me. She was real, solid, alive. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I had to stay hidden until we could get them all, but I watched over you, always." My parents were screaming their lawyers, shouting about mistrial and manufactured evidence. But nothing could stop the truth now. "She survived the push off the cliff," the prosecutor explained to the stunned courtroom. "Hikers found her, got her to a hospital. The FBI placed her in protective custody when she revealed the murder attempt. She's been helping build this case ever since, waiting for enough evidence to ensure conviction." Emma took the stand, was lifted to it, her legs too damaged to walk. Her testimony was devastating. She described the moment our father pushed her, our mother's cold smile as she fell. The months of recovery, learning she'd never walk properly again. The decision to let them think they'd succeeded while gathering evidence. "I knew they'd target Dulcie eventually," she said, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "When they abandoned her at that gas station, I nearly broke cover. But we needed them to believe they'd won, needed them confident enough to make mistakes." By the end of the day, the case was ironclad. My parents faced life sentences. The network of killers was shattered, its members arrested at the fake wedding or fleeing into FBI dragnets. But for me, only one thing mattered: Emma was alive. Damaged, changed, but alive. As we left the courthouse together, Emma in her wheelchair, me walking beside her, surrounded by federal protection reporters, shouted questions. We ignored them all. "So," Emma said as we reached the secure van, "ready to disappear again, this time together?" I squeezed her hand. Together sounds perfect. The tradition was broken. The killers were caught. And against all odds, both Martinez sisters had survived to see justice done. Our parents had tried to prune us from the family tree. Instead, we'd cut out the rot and planted something new, a future free from murder lies and the poisonous tradition that nearly destroyed us both. The safe house felt different with Emma there. For 3 days after the court hearing, we barely left each other's sight. I kept touching her hand, her face, making sure she was real. 5 years of grief don't just evaporate because someone walks back into your life, even if they wheel in. "Stop staring at me like I'm going to disappear," Emma said over breakfast, her voice carrying the gentle mockery I'd missed so much. "I'm not going anywhere, Dulcie. I thought you were dead. I mourned you. My voice cracked. "I used your memory as motivation to bring them down." "I know." Her expression softened. "Agent Rivera showed me everything. The girl who got left at a gas station became a warrior. I'm so proud of you." But there was still so much I didn't understand. That evening, with Rivera and Bradley present to fill in gaps, Emma finally told her whole story. "I'd been investigating for months before that trip," she began. "Found the journals you eventually discovered documented the pattern. I was planning to go to the FBI the Monday after that weekend. But Sunday morning, Mom suggested a family drive to look at wedding venues in Colorado." "For whose wedding?" "Mine, supposedly. They'd decided I was getting too independent, too dangerous. The wedding story was covered just like with Jake." Emma's hands clenched in her lap. "The cliff overlook was beautiful," romantic Mom said. "Perfect for photos. Dad kept positioning me closer to the edge, talking about the view." She paused, taking a shaky breath. I saw it in his eyes the moment before he did it. Just emptiness. Like I was a problem to solve, not his daughter. I tried to dodge, but he was too fast. The push sent me over. "How did you survive?" "Luck. Branches. A ledge about 20 feet down caught me, broke the fall into segments. But my legs..." She gestured at the wheelchair. Shattered. Spine damaged. The hikers who found me said I was unconscious for hours. Rivera took over. The hospital contacted us when Emma woke up. She was terrified her parents would come finish the job, insisted we check their alibis. When we discovered they'd already reported her as a runaway, filed insurance claims, we knew she was telling the truth. But why not arrest them then? I asked. No evidence, Emma said bitterly. My word against theirs. They'd played grieving parents perfectly, even had witnesses who'd seen them searching the area after I wandered off. Without more proof, it would have been dismissed as a troubled teen's desperate lie. So the FBI hid you. Witness protection off the books. New name, new life, intensive physical therapy. Emma's smile was sad. Sarah Chen, that's what they called me. I watched from afar as our parents collected my life insurance, played the victims. Wanted to scream the truth, but knew they'd just kill more people if I surfaced. Bradley pulled out a tablet showing surveillance footage. Emma's been our silent partner for 3 years. Every lead I developed, she verified. Every pattern you found, she documented first. When you survived their abandonment attempt, she nearly broke cover. I was watching the library cameras, Emma admitted. Saw you go in that first morning limping and scared. It took 3 agents to stop me from going to you, but Rivera convinced me if we waited, if you could gather evidence independently, we'd have 2 witnesses instead of 1. You let me think you were dead. I'm sorry. Tears ran down Emma's face. But Dulcie, if you'd known I was alive, would you have fought so hard? Would you have dug so deep? Your genuine grief and anger made you unstoppable, made you believable. Even our parents couldn't dismiss you as a conspirator because you truly thought I was gone. I wanted to be angry but couldn't. She was right. My pain had driven me to take risks a hopeful person wouldn't have taken. There's more, Rivera said. Emma didn't just hide. She's been building a legal case, studying law through correspondence courses. She's 3 months from a degree. I'm going to prosecute them, Emma said fiercely. Every conspirator, every enabler. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no family suffers like ours did. The tradition dies with our generation, but justice continues. Together, I asked. If you'll have me, though you might not once you hear the rest. Emma looked uncomfortable. I've been in contact with someone you know, Marcus. My head snapped up. What? After he helped you that first night, I made sure he found that youth shelter. Anonymous tip about a bed opening up small cash donation to get him started. I couldn't help you directly, but I could help the boy who saved you. You've been watching over both of us. All of us. Jake too. Those donations he made to runaway shelters, I suggested them through intermediaries, guided him toward redemption. Even Mrs. Patterson, when the library faced budget cuts last year, an anonymous grant saved the youth programs. Couldn't let the woman who sheltered you lose her ability to help others. I stared at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not just a victim who survived, but a guardian angel working from the shadows. You built a network to counter theirs, I breathed. Someone had to. Our family spent 60 years creating a murder machine. I've spent 5 years building a justice network to destroy it. She rolled closer to me. But I'm tired of shadows, Dulcie, ready to step into the light. The question is, what do you want? Witness protection means new identities, new lives. We can disappear together, start fresh, anywhere. I thought about it. Dulcie Martinez, the volleyball player with normal teenage problems, was gone. The girl who'd survived the gas station was gone too. In their place sat someone harder, sadder, but infinitely stronger. What about everyone else, Marcus, Mrs. Patterson, Christina? They'll be protected but not relocated. Their connection to the case is peripheral. Ours. Emma gestured between us. We're the heart of it. The surviving victims who brought down a dynasty. That makes us permanent targets for anyone loyal to the tradition. Rivera pulled out folders. New identities are ready when you are. Sisters still, but with a different last name, different history. College applications, job references, everything you need to build real lives. What about testifying the trials? Video testimony, sealed depositions. You've already given us everything we need. The rest is just procedure. Rivera smiled. You've done your part. Time to let the justice system do its job. That night, Emma and I stayed up talking, filling in 5 years of gaps. She told me about the physical therapy the nights she'd cried wanting to contact me, the strange freedom of being legally dead. I told her about the gas station, Marcus's kindness, Mrs. Patterson's basement sanctuary. We compared notes on our parents' crimes, marveling at how we'd both followed similar investigative paths. You know what the sick part is, Emma said around 3 a.m. I think they were proud when you survived the gas station. Not happy, but proud. You proved you were a true Martinez, ruthless enough to endure anything. Except I used that ruthlessness against them. The ultimate irony. They created their own destroyer by trying to destroy you. She yawned. Though I guess I helped. Those survival skills, that determination you got, that from knowing you had a sister who loved you even if you thought I was gone. Don't you dare take credit for my badassery, I mock protested. I earned every bit of it behind that dumpster. We actually laughed for the first time since reuniting. It felt strange but necessary, like using atrophied muscles. By morning we'd decided. New names, new city, new lives, but together. The Martinez sisters would vanish, replaced by 2 young women with unremarkable backgrounds and remarkable resilience. One condition, I said as Rivera prepared our relocation paperwork. We stay involved in the trials. Video testimony, depositions, whatever's needed. Our parents stole 60 years of lives. We owe those victims justice. And after, Emma asked. After we live. Really live. Not just survive or hide, but build something good. Maybe help other victims of family violence. Use what we've learned. I squeezed her hand. The tradition ends, but our story continues. Rivera handed us our new documents. Different names, but the same unbreakable bond. We'd been forged in abandonment and murder attempts tempered by years apart, but emerged stronger than our parents could have imagined. Ready? Emma asked as federal marshals prepared to drive us to our new lives. Together, I responded. Always. The girl abandoned at the gas station was gone. The girl who died on a cliff was gone. In their place, 2 sisters rolled and walked toward a future free from tradition, but full of purpose. Our parents had tried to prune us from the family tree. Instead, we'd become seeds carried on the wind, ready to plant something entirely new. The wedding still happened in a way. 3 weeks after Emma's dramatic court appearance, Jake married Amanda Torres in a small ceremony at the Federal Detention Center, where he was being held for his own protection. I watched through a video link from our secure location, Emma beside me in her wheelchair. "Do you, Jacob Martinez, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the chaplain asked. "I do," Jake said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. It should have been absurd, a wedding in a jail visitor room, the groom in custody, FBI agents as witnesses. But when Amanda said her vows, her voice carried something I hadn't expected, genuine emotion. Jake Rivera explained later that day visiting our temporary safe house has been instrumental in unraveling the network. His recordings combined with what you and Emma provided have led to 47 arrests so far. 47, Emma breathed. The tradition was bigger than just your family. Connected families across 5 states, all running similar operations. Your parents were regional leaders in a murder syndicate that's operated since the 1960s. Rivera pulled out her tablet, showing us charts that look like corporate hierarchies. 60 years of murders, all connected, all following the same playbook your great-grandfather wrote. The revelation should have shocked me, but I was beyond surprise. Of course it was bigger. Evil that's systematic doesn't exist in isolation. "What about Amanda?" I asked. "Jake's wife, she's really FBI." Rivera smiled. "That's what makes this interesting. She was undercover, yes, assigned to get close to Jake 2 years ago, but But she fell in love with him, Emma finished. Classic. More complicated than that. Rivera pulled up Amanda's file. Agent Torres specialized in infiltrating organized crime families. She was supposed to gather evidence on Jake, flip him if possible. Instead, she discovered he was already documenting crimes, wrestling with guilt, trying to find a way out. The video link crackled back to life. Jake and Amanda sat across from each other at a metal table, holding hands despite the handcuffs. "I need to tell you something," Amanda was saying, "about why I really stayed." Jake tensed. "If this is where you reveal you're pregnant or dying or—" "No." She laughed, surprising them both. "Nothing that dramatic. I stayed because I saw who you really were, not the killer your parents wanted, not the coward you believed yourself to be. I saw a man trying to break a generational curse." "I let them kill Emma," Jake said flatly. "You were 15 and terrified. You've punished yourself every day since." Amanda leaned forward. "But you also recorded them. Protected Sarah when they threatened her. Helped Dulcie escape. You've been fighting them the only way you knew how." Watching my brother's face crumble, I felt my own anger softening. He'd been trapped in the same family web, just caught differently than Emma and me. "The deal Rivera offered," Amanda continued. "Take it. Testify, serve your time, then disappear with me. We can build something better." "What kind of life is that for you, married to a convicted conspirator?" "A real life, honest for the first time." She squeezed his hands. "I've spent 5 years pretending to be someone else. I'm tired of lies. Aren't you?" Emma gripped my hand as we watched. Our brother, complicit but repentant, guilty but not irredeemable, sat at his own crossroads. "Yes," Jake finally whispered. "God, yes." Rivera turned off the feed, giving them privacy. "He'll serve 3 years, possibly 2, with good behavior. Amanda's agreed to resign from the Bureau, start fresh with him after. Your grandmother's legitimate inheritance will be divided between you and Emma. Jake's renounced his share." "Grandma," I said suddenly, "is she watching all this?" "Every moment," Rivera confirmed. "She's in a secure facility helping prosecutors understand 60 years of financial crimes. Did you know your family's murder profits funded 12 legitimate businesses, all being seized now?" The scope kept expanding. Every thread pulled revealed 10 more. Our parents hadn't just killed for inheritance, they'd built an empire on blood money. That evening, a package arrived through secure channels. Inside was a letter in Jake's handwriting. "Dulcie and Emma, I don't expect forgiveness. I failed you both in unforgivable ways, but I want you to know every recording I made, every document I preserved, I did thinking of you, hoping someday it might protect you or bring you justice." Amanda helped me see that redemption isn't about erasing the past, but building a better future. I'll spend whatever time I have left doing that. The tradition dies with us. Let something better grow. Your brother, if you'll still have me, Jake. Emma read it twice, then looked at me. "What do you think?" I paused, sorting through complicated emotions. "I think people aren't just one thing. Jake was weak when it mattered most, but he's been strong since. Maybe that's enough." "Forgiveness? Not yet, maybe not ever completely, but acknowledgement that he's trying that I can do." Rivera's phone buzzed. She checked it and smiled. "Speaking of trying, Marcus sends his regards. He's starting community college next month. Wants to become a social worker. Help street kids like you. Helped him." "I helped him," I laughed. "He saved my life that first night." "And you saved his by exposing the trafficking ring, the shelter he's at. It only had funding because the FBI redirected seized assets from your family's crimes. Full circle." Everything connected. Every action rippled outward. Our parents' evil had created unexpected good survivors, helping survivors, justice funding redemption. "There's a request from Christina Chen," Rivera continued. "She's working on a documentary about generational trauma and breaking cycles of violence. Wants to interview you both whenever you're ready." "After," Emma said firmly. After the trials, after we're settled, this story needs an ending before it becomes history. But I wondered if stories like ours ever really ended. The tradition was broken, yes. The murders stopped, the network dismantled. But the effects would ripple for generations. Every life saved, every survivor who found strength, every family that didn't lose a loved one to greed, all of it grew from that night at the gas station. The wedding venue? I asked suddenly. The trap one. What happened to it? Rivera grinned. Funny story. The FBI had to pay for the whole fake wedding to maintain cover. Beautiful venue, top shelf, catering the works. So after arresting everyone, we donated the reception to a local foster kids organization. Figured abused children deserved something beautiful after what your family put them through. I imagined it kids who'd survived their own traumas dancing where killers had planned to strike. Another reversal evil transformed to good. Jake chose right, Emma said quietly that night as we prepared for bed in our safe house. Amanda, I mean. Someone who sees the person you could be, not just who you've been. Think he'll make it, really change. He already has. The Jake who helped our parents would have fled or turned state's evidence for immunity. Instead, he's accepting responsibility, serving time, trying to earn redemption. She adjusted her wheelchair, preparing for the complex process of getting into bed. That's more than our parents ever did. They still claim innocence. Complete denial. Their lawyers are building an insanity defense claiming we're all delusional, that the recordings are fake, the evidence planted. Emma's laugh was bitter. 60 years of documented murders and they call us crazy. It would have been funnier if it weren't so typical. The gaslighting continued even from federal custody. Tomorrow, Rivera moves us to the permanent safe house, I said. New city, new names, new start. Scared. Terrified. Same. Emma reached for my hand. But we're together. That's more than I had for 5 years, more than you had at that gas station. Together we can handle anything. She was right. The girl who'd slept behind a dumpster could handle a new identity. The girl who'd survived a cliff could handle a new city. Together, the Martinez sisters, whatever names we wore, could handle whatever came next. The wedding that was meant to be a killing ground had become a symbol of redemption. Jake and Amanda's strange love story proved that even in the darkest families, choice remained possible. People could choose love over loyalty to evil truth, over profitable lies. As I fell asleep in my last night as Dulcie Martinez, I thought about transformations. Gas stations becoming starting points, dumpsters becoming shelters, victims becoming warriors, a wedding of death becoming a celebration of justice. Tomorrow we'd be new people in a new place, but tonight we were still sisters who'd survived the unsurvivable and exposed the unthinkable. The tradition was dead. Our transformation was just beginning. The FBI conference room in Washington, D.C. looked like a war room. 8 months had passed since Emma and I entered witness protection, but Rivera had summoned us back for something big. Maps covered every wall, red strings connecting photos of faces I recognized, and many I didn't. "Ladies," Rivera said as we entered, Emma rolling me walking beside her. "Thank you for coming. We needed you to see this." Assistant Director Coleman, a man who looked like he'd aged a decade in the months since taking our case, gestured at the displays. "Your testimony didn't just break your family's murder ring. It shattered an entire network we didn't know existed. 63 families across 12 states," another agent explained, "all running variations of the tradition. Your great-grandfather wasn't the originator. He learned it from a group that's existed since the 1800s. They called themselves the Gardeners." Emma and I exchanged glances. The scope kept growing. "Gardeners?" I asked. "Pruning the family tree," Coleman said grimly, "keeping it healthy by removing weak branches. What started as a few wealthy families eliminating inconvenient heirs became a sophisticated network. They shared methods, alibis, even killers for hire." Rivera pulled up a presentation. Thanks to your evidence and testimony, we've arrested 207 people, saved an estimated 40 potential victims who were being targeted, seized $800 million in assets built on murder. The numbers were staggering. Our parents were big fish, but in an ocean of predators. Why tell us this? Emma asked. We're supposed to be invisible, building new lives. Because Coleman said, you've become symbols. Other victims are coming forward inspired by your courage. Families who lost loved ones decades ago are demanding investigations. You didn't just expose crimes, you started a movement. He showed us letters, thousands of them. People sharing stories of suspicious deaths, thanking us for giving them hope for justice. Children who'd been labeled troubled for questioning family deaths. Spouses dismissed as paranoid for suspecting murder. We need you to testify before Congress, Rivera said, about protecting vulnerable family members, inheritance law reform, improving how police handle suspicious deaths. Your voices carry weight now. Our voices got us death threats, Emma pointed out. Even in protection, we've had 3 close calls. Which is why we're offering you something different. Coleman pulled out official documents. Full federal witness immunity and protection, but with a twist. Become consultants. Help us identify and prevent family-based murder conspiracies. Use your experience to save others. You want us to hunt killers? I asked. We want you to help us recognize patterns others miss. You survived because you saw what trained investigators didn't. Rivera leaned forward. Dulce, you were 13 and figured out a 60-year conspiracy. Emma, you documented evidence while recovering from attempted murder. Those instincts are invaluable. Emma was already reading the documents. This mentions international connections. The Gardners have chapters worldwide. What you exposed here has victims in Europe, Asia, South America reaching out. Family murder conspiracies, dressed up as tradition, exist everywhere. Coleman's expression was haunted. We had no idea how widespread this was until you made us look. I thought about the math. 200 arrests from our case alone. How many thousands more were out there killing relatives while playing grieving family? I'm in, I said. Emma nodded agreement. There's more, Rivera added. Your parents' trial starts next month. They're still claiming innocence, saying you and Emma manufactured everything. Their lawyers are pushing the narrative that you're disturbed children seeking attention. Let them, Emma said coldly. We have recordings document 60 years of evidence. And something else. Rivera smiled. Other family members have flipped. Cousins who participated in minor roles. Aunts who knew but stayed quiet. 15 family members are testifying in exchange for reduced sentences. Your parents are being abandoned by their own network. The poetic justice wasn't lost on me. They'd taught that family loyalty meant protecting killers. Now that same family was racing to save themselves. That afternoon, we visited the memorial Rivera's team had created, a private garden with markers for every confirmed victim of the Gardners. Emma and I placed flowers at a stone marked Unknown Martinez Victims, silenced but not forgotten. Think any of them tried to fight back? I asked. Definitely. We're just the ones who succeeded. Emma touched her wheelchair. Though success is relative. You're alive, that's success. We're alive, she corrected. That's success. The congressional testimony came 3 weeks later. Emma and I sat side by side. She'd practiced transferring to a regular chair, so we'd appear as equals facing a room full of senators and representatives. Ms. Martinez. Senator Walsh began, then caught herself. I apologize, should I use your protective identity? Martinez is fine, I said. It's evidence of what we survived. We won't let them take our name along with everything else. For 3 hours, we laid out the systematic nature of family murders, how inheritance laws created opportunities, how police dismissed suspicions from young victims, how the foster system became a hunting ground for traffickers connected to killer families. What would have saved your sister Emma? Congresswoman Park asked. Emma answered herself. If someone had listened when I first reported my suspicions, If there were mandatory investigations when multiple family members die young, if inheritance couldn't be changed after suspicious deaths. And you, Dulcie, if running away didn't automatically make me troubled, if police had to verify parents' claims about their children, if 13-year-olds had somewhere safe to report family abuse without being labeled liars. The committee took notes, asked follow-ups, promised action. Whether they'd deliver remained to be seen, but at least we'd spoken truth to power. Outside the Capitol, protesters held signs with our photos, "Justice for the silenced," and "End the tradition." Supporters outnumbered the family loyalists shouting about false accusations. "We did that," Emma marveled. "Two girls who were supposed to disappear made the whole country pay attention." That evening, we had dinner with our extended team. Mrs. Patterson had flown in, still running her library sanctuary. Marcus joined us halfway through his social work degree. Christina was there with her documentary crew capturing the reunion. To the survivors. Bradley toasted. He'd officially retired from private investigation to teach courses on recognizing family violence. To the fighters, Rivera countered. She'd been promoted for breaking the case, now headed a unit dedicated to family conspiracy crimes. To the future, I added, thinking of all the potential victims who'd never become victims because we'd spoken up. But the evening's biggest surprise came from Jake video calling from federal prison with Amanda beside him. "I wanted you both to know," he said, "I'm testifying. Full confession naming everyone I knew about. It won't undo my cowardice, but maybe it'll prevent other brothers from making my mistakes. Also," Amanda added, her hand on her stomach, "we're having a baby, a girl. We want to name her Emma Dulcie Torres, if you'll allow it." Emma actually cried. I did too. New life growing from the ashes of our family's destruction. A child who'd know her history but not be defined by it. "Yes," we said together. "One condition," Emma added. "She grows up knowing the truth, age-appropriate but honest. No family secrets, no hidden traditions. Complete transparency." "Already writing it all down," Jake promised. "Every memory, every lesson learned. She'll know exactly what her family was and choose to be better." The call ended with promises to stay in touch, to be the aunts our niece deserved, despite the complicated history. "Think she'll hate us?" Emma asked later. "For being the ones who exposed her grandparents?" "Maybe. Or maybe she'll thank us for breaking the cycle before it claimed her too." Time would tell. But that night, surrounded by chosen family instead of blood relatives, I felt something I hadn't experienced since that October evening at the gas station, wholeness. The next morning brought news that shook even our hardened hearts. 43 more arrests overnight, including a federal judge and 2 police commissioners who'd helped cover family murders for decades. The network's reach into law enforcement explained why so many suspicious deaths went uninvestigated. "This is why we need you," Coleman said, calling with updates. "You understand how they think, how they operate. Help us train investigators to see what you saw." "When do we start?" Emma asked. "Monday, if you're ready. Full benefits, protective custody, maintained, working with a team of analysts to identify potential family conspiracies before they turn deadly. From victims to warriors to protectors, our evolution continued." The girl abandoned at a gas station was gone, replaced by a federal consultant who'd saved dozens of lives. The girl pushed off a cliff had become an advocate for justice. Together, we were rewriting what it meant to be Martinez women. "Our parents would hate this," I told Emma as we prepared for our new roles. "Us using their name to destroy everything they built." "Good. Let them watch from prison as we dismantle their legacy piece by piece." The tradition had created us, shaped us through trauma and attempted murder. But we'd transformed that darkness into purpose. Every life we saved, every conspiracy we exposed, every survivor we empowered was a victory over the philosophy that nearly destroyed us. The gardeners thought they were cultivating strength by pruning the weak. They'd forgotten that pruned branches can take root and grow into something entirely new, something stronger, something better, something that would outlast their poisonous tradition by generations. 17 years later, I stood in my office looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. The nameplate on my desk read Director Dulcie Morrison, the identity I'd worn for almost 2 decades. But everyone here knew my real name, my real story. It was required reading for every employee at the Ruth Foundation. The foundation occupied 3 floors of a modern building downtown. What started as a small nonprofit had grown into the nation's largest support network for runaway youth and family violence survivors. 10,000 kids helped and counting. Director Morrison. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your 9 o'clock is here. Send them in, Keisha. The door opened to reveal a teenage girl, maybe 14, with the same haunted look I'd once worn. Behind her, one of our outreach counselors nodded encouragingly. This is Alyssa, the counselor said. Found her at Union Station. Says her parents left her there yesterday. They told police she's a chronic runaway. The parallels hit like a punch. I came around the desk, sitting in the chair beside Alyssa instead of behind my barrier of authority. Hi, Alyssa. I'm Dulcie. I know this is scary, but you're safe now. I pulled out my phone, showing her an old photo. See this girl? That was me at 13. My parents left me at a gas station 60 miles from home. Also told police I was a runaway. Alyssa's eyes widened. You're the one from the documentary, The Martinez Sisters. That's me, which means I know exactly what you're going through, and I know we can help. For the next hour, I listened to Alyssa's story. The pattern was achingly familiar parents who'd systematically isolated her suspicious deaths of relatives, who might have helped inheritance she didn't know she stood to receive. Another family following the tradition, though they probably didn't even know the name. We'll handle this, I promised her. Legal protection, safe housing, and investigators who specialize in family conspiracies. You don't have to fight alone. After Alyssa was settled with our youth counselors, I headed to the conference room. Emma was already there, having rolled in from her office next door, where she served as chief legal counsel. The years had been kind to us both, success and safety aging us gracefully. Another Gardner family, she asked. Looking like it. I've already notified Rivera's team at the FBI. Agent Rivera, now Deputy Director Rivera, had become family over the years. She'd stood as witness at both our real weddings, been there, when Emma's surgery gave her partial mobility, back celebrated every milestone of our rebuilt lives. Speaking of family, Emma said Jake's flight lands at 2. You're still picking them up. Wouldn't miss it. My brother had served his full sentence, rebuilt his life with Amanda in Portland. They ran a small cybersecurity firm using skills learned, documenting our parents' crimes to help other whistleblowers protect evidence. Their daughter, Emma Dulcie Torres, ED to everyone, was 17 now and had just been accepted to Stanford. She wants to be a prosecutor, Emma laughed. Says Aunt Emma inspired her to fight for justice through law. Better than following the other family tradition. That died with our parents. Robert and Linda Martinez had been convicted on all counts. Life sentences with no possibility of parole. They died in prison within 3 years of each other. Mom from a stroke, dad from what the official report called complications from an altercation with another inmate. The unofficial word was that even hardened criminals didn't tolerate child killers. I'd felt nothing. No grief, no satisfaction, just a quiet closing of a chapter that had already ended the night they drove away from that gas station. Mrs. Patterson called. Emma continued. The library's youth shelter is at capacity again. She's requesting additional funding. Approve it, whatever she needs. Margaret Patterson was 78 now, but still fierce. The library had become a model for community-based intervention, saving countless kids who might otherwise have disappeared into trafficking or worse. She'd won presidential medals for her service, all stemming from the day she'd hidden a scared 13-year-old in her basement. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus Chen, Dr. Marcus Chen, now running a clinic for homeless youth in Seattle. He'd attached a photo of his latest success story, twin brothers 15, who'd escaped an abusive home and found shelter through the network we'd all helped build. Still saving lives from that first night, Emma observed, reading over my shoulder. We all are. The ripples keep spreading. Christina's documentary had won 3 Emmys and an Oscar. More importantly, it had saved lives by teaching people to recognize the signs of family conspiracies. She still called monthly, working on a follow-up about breaking generational trauma. Ma'am, Keisha's voice again, there's someone here without an appointment. Says he has information about a family in Texas running something called The Tradition. Emma and I exchanged glances. 17 years later, we were still finding them. The Gardners had been older and more widespread than anyone imagined. Send him to conference room 3, I said. And contact the FBI liaison. We've got another one. As I walked through our foundation, I saw our mission in action. Former runaways training as social workers, survivors becoming counselors, kids who'd escaped family violence learning they weren't alone, weren't crazy, weren't the problem. Jake and his family arrived that afternoon for ED's college send-off dinner. My niece had grown into a brilliant young woman with her mother's strength and her father's determination to make amends. She wore her name proudly, honoring both aunts who'd survived to break the cycle. Aunt Dulcie, she said, pulling me aside at the restaurant, I've been thinking about my thesis project. I want to write about inherited trauma, how families pass down patterns of violence, and how some members break free. Personal experience, I asked gently. Partly, but also, she pulled out a worn envelope. Grandma Ruth left me this before she died, said I should open it when I was ready to understand. Ruth had passed 5 years ago at 93, surrounded by the family she'd helped save. Her funeral was attended by hundreds of survivors, investigators, and advocates whose lives she'd touched. ED opened the letter, reading aloud. My dear great-granddaughter, by now you know the darkness in our bloodline. But darkness exists only because light defines it. You are that light, as are your aunts, your father who chose redemption, your mother who chose love. The tradition of death ends. A tradition of justice begins. Love, Grandma Ruth. She left letters for all of us, Emma said quietly. Reminders that we're not defined by what we survived, but by what we chose to do after. That evening, our strange assembled family filled a private dining room. Blood relatives and chosen family mixed freely, Jake and Amanda and ED Emma, with her wife, Dr. Sarah Winters, a trauma surgeon who'd treated teen victims, me with my husband David Park, a former prosecutor who'd handled Gardner cases, Rivera and her partner Bradley, and his adopted daughters, both former runaways, Mrs. Patterson, with her honorary grandchildren, every kid she'd saved, Marcus, with his boyfriend, James Christina, with her crew. A toast. Jake proposed, standing carefully. Prison and age had humbled him, but redemption had strengthened him. To the girls who refused to disappear, who turned abandonment into action trauma, into triumph. To everyone who believed us, Emma countered, who saw past the labels to the truth. To the ones still out there, I added, still fighting, still surviving, may they find their way to safety. To family, ED said simply, the kind you choose and build, not the kind that tries to destroy you. We drank to all of it, to survival and justice, to chosen bonds and broken chains, to the 10,000 kids helped, and the thousands more we'd reach. Later, as the party wound down, a young server approached nervously. Excuse me, are you really Dulce Martinez from the documentary? I am. My parents tried something similar when I was 16, left me at a bus station in Denver, but I'd seen your story, knew what to do, who to call. She blinked back tears. You saved my life without even knowing I existed. What's your name? Rebecca Walsh. Well, Rebecca, you saved your own life. I just showed you it was possible. I handed her a foundation card. If you ever need anything job reference, someone to talk to, call me. As she walked away, Emma rolled up beside me. Think we'll ever stop meeting ourselves in other people? Hope not. Every Rebecca, every Alyssa, every kid who sees our story and knows they can survive, that's the real legacy. The girl who'd slept behind a dumpster had built an empire of compassion. The girl who'd fallen from a cliff had risen to pull others up. Together, we'd transformed the worst thing that ever happened to us into hope for thousands of others. "Ready to go home?" David asked, wrapping an arm around me. Almost. I looked around the room at our gathered family, our life's work made manifest in the people we'd saved and been saved by. Just want to remember this moment. Because this room full of survivors and fighters, this network of protection, we'd built this proof that love conquers tradition. This was what winning looked like. My phone buzzed with another alert. Another runaway found, another family conspiracy suspected, another life to save. Director Morrison, the night shift coordinator, said, "We've got a situation. 13-year-old boy at a gas station in Riverside. Parents left him there 6 hours ago." On my way, I said already moving, because that's what we did now. We showed up. We believed. We broke the cycle one child at a time. The tradition had nearly killed us. Instead, we'd killed the tradition and built something beautiful in its place. And we were just getting started. As I drove toward Riverside, Emma beside me and our team mobilizing behind us, I thought about everyone watching. If you've ever felt abandoned, ever been called troubled for speaking truth, ever wondered if you could survive your family's darkness, you can. We're proof. Trust yourself. Find your people. Break the cycle. And remember, sometimes the best revenge against those who try to erase you is to become too bright to ignore, too strong to stop, too committed to saving others, to waste time on hate. That's our tradition now. The tradition of the survivors, the believers, the ones who transform pain into purpose. Join us. The world needs more gardeners who cultivate hope instead of death. Because every child deserves what I found that night behind the dumpster, the knowledge that tomorrow could be better, that strangers could become family, that the girl who was told to woman up would grow up to catch the ones who told her that. We won. And if you're reading this, fighting your own family's darkness, so will you. Have you or someone you know ever felt trapped by family secrets or toxic traditions? What gave you the strength to break free? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the hope someone else needs to hear today. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe to hear more narratives of survival and triumph. Share this with anyone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggle. Together we can break cycles of harm and build traditions of healing. Thank you for joining Dulcie and Emma on their journey from abandonment to triumph. May you find your own path to freedom surrounded by those who truly see and value you.